report. So I'd like for Mr. Kendrick to have an opportunity to kind of talk through that and get it out there so that it's clear for everyone. Yeah, and then in March, we'll be looking at, in March, we're going to be looking at potential adjustments to the scope if the engineer approves that, and then the ongoing maintenance options. So Mr. Kendrick's going to be presenting on that at the March work session, and then council will be able to vote in March at our final meeting. So with that, I also wanted to just make everyone aware and give a special thank you. Mr. Kendrick's been in the process of coordinating with DeKalb County to, we had the intergovernmental $2 million fund that DeKalb County gave to 4 small cities because of the previous mayor and city manager, and of really advocating for that. That is for stormwater and recreation and some other things. We talked about that in the last virtual council meeting. But that's a one-time kind of windfall, right? And so Mr. Kendrick, with his connections through DeKalb County Watershed and at the county at large, has been advocating for Pine Lake getting a much larger portion of stormwater fees, since we do manage a lot of the county's stormwater, being the lovely bowl that we are. So I just want to say thank you for that, and I look forward to those the fruits of those conversations. So any other council comment?
I would just like to say thank everyone for coming out. It will be a good night. We're going to have some good community involvement. Mr. Kendrick will be answering questions and talking about the work that he's done on the berm. And let's show respect and patience, and we have questions, and we can do that respectfully. We should stay away from accusations or insinuations against somebody's character or anything like that. That doesn't have much. It doesn't help discussion. It just shuts everything down. And so I think it'll be more productive if we stay away from taking things personally. We can talk about what without talking about who. And so I would hope that we can keep that together. Questions about vendors or bidding or contracts or anything like that, I think should be a different night. And we will have time to talk about that. And I think it should be talked about. And I think it should be talked about in a public forum. But I don't think tonight is the night for that specifically. But we'll talk about more of that later. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Torrent. Any other public comment? I mean,
Yeah,
council comment.
Yeah, so Jane Lowers and I held our first community chat on probably one of the coldest days of the year, and we had a great turnout, and we had a really good conversation, and I see some of the same faces here, so thank you for those of you who came out then, and I just hope that we can all continue what Jeff and Thomas started last year and do it on a regular basis. So thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks for hosting us. Any other council comment?
Good evening. It's nice to see a lot of people. Quick update on regaining Tree City certification for Pine Lake. The application's been submitted and initially approved by the Georgia Forestry Commission, and the response I got from them was it still needs to go up the ladder up to the Arbor Day Foundation, but basically his comment was congrats on getting back in the program, which makes me think he has a little bit of, the state has more authority than, say, the Arbor Day Foundation. They take their word for it, so we should be getting information back on that soon. And I have a meeting with the forestry representative, David Long, next week. He's done an audit on our tree ordinance already and has some feedback, some suggestions. He has said that our ordinance is really good, which I kind of feel some pride on because I helped write that years ago. And that was, I think, enacted when Kathy was mayor, I believe. And he's also going to be working on a invasive plant management plan, which will be a long-term plan to help us manage invasive growth within the green space of Pine Lake. So it's all free resources through the Georgia Forestry Commission. And I want to reiterate, I think, what's already been said in terms of just being civil. We're all neighbors. I've heard a lot of passion, which is great. Passion, it means it's really important. It connects to your heart. And the lake and the wetlands is part of the heart of Pine Lake. So I get the passion. What I hope is, again, we separate the passion from the person. Because I have been hearing some personal attacks, which really kind of makes me sad. Thanks.
Thank you. Great. Any other council comment? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the agenda of the day?
I will move to adopt the agenda today.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes. All right, we're going to open the public hearing for the 2026 comprehensive plan. Stanley. Or Mr. Oh, great, thank you. Come.
Yeah, this is the public hearing section.
The
Do you
public
want-
hearing portion, yeah.
I don't know what order you want to. Oh, okay. Okay, so,
Oh,
this
then we
is-
should amend the.
let's,
Oh, no, no.
well, sorry. I suppose you could amend the agenda to put the public comments or public hearing immediately following new business item 1, and then resume
Okay.
the new business items following that.
Does
Do you
that
want
work
to,
on the ARC side?
Chris, can they retroactively amend the agenda? How should they order that?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is the mayor has control of the agenda throughout the entire meeting, so it can change however she needs or wants.
Okay,
But the introduction from the ARC does need to precede the public hearing
Yeah.
so that people know what the public hearing's even about.
totally. That was causing me confusion also. Okay, great. Is there a motion to amend the agenda that we just adopted to move the public hearing after new business item 1?
I move that we amend the agenda to reflect the public hearing coming after new business item 1.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, moving on. We'll start with public comment and then we'll get into the ARC. Third time will be a charm, it'll be great. No, appreciate your eagerness. Okay, we'll open with public comment. Mr. Dagenhard will keep time, 3 minutes. If you step up to the podium, state your name and your address, and yeah, please. Am I calling on people? Do you, anybody? Come on up. Thanks, Jean. What's that? I know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jean Bordeaux, 4631 Lakeshore Drive. Good evening.
Hi, Jean.
We can't
Um,
lose you.
I'd like to address the ongoing riprap controversy, which seems to me has been a created crisis resulting from one council member's focus on a single viewpoint and his furtherance of that agenda by actively gathering residents who agree with him to fill the council chambers. Numerous angry comments have been made, including accusations aimed at city staff and the mayor. Misinformation is rampant in an atmosphere where some voices have been amplified while others may feel discouraged from speaking up. Many in our city, myself included, prefer the cleaner look of the dam bank and believe that over time this will revert to a more natural look and habitat. But even after 10 years of experience on council, I found the anger expressed at the January 13th meeting quite intimidating. I can only imagine how it felt to the 3 brand new council members or to someone who might have disagreed but didn't speak because they didn't want to appear anti-environmental. I urge the council to remember that you were elected to represent all Pine Lake residents, not to advocate strictly for your personal point of view. Your responsibility is to understand the diverse viewpoints in our community and to help foster acceptance that everyone's opinion is valid. It is the job of the governing body to apply these opinions to the issues while making decisions that are in the best interest of Pine Lake. Your best tool in making those decisions is our highly professional staff. While residents and council members bring important perspectives, these cannot replace the expertise and the decades of experience that our city manager and department directors bring to these complex issues. Specifically regarding Rip Rap Gate, Public Works Director Kendrick worked closely with a very reputable engineering firm that recommended, after a thorough inspection of the dam, that riprap be placed on the upstream slope. City Attorney Balch advised that we follow the state and county guidelines for dams, and City Manager Hawthorne ensured the project was properly funded. All of these recommendations were made with the best interest of Pine Lake as the top priority. Based on these recommendations, council approved the resolution. Now it's time to move on from this dispute and try to focus on what unites us, not what divides us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you.
I'll take it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Mira Alibasic, 734 Oak Hill Circle. I would like to talk about them. ICOM recommendation doesn't mean that you do not need building permit. And if you can see those circled, you can see that 500 linear feet or more of riprap requires permits. So I have several questions to AI, and you can see these permits requires proper construction documentation. You cannot just say somebody, oh, we recommend that. Okay, you guys approved, but next step would be DeKalb County with the permits. None of that was acquired, and that riprap was installed improperly. I mean, there is no bottom stone, there is no underlayment, it was just laid, and we do not have any calculation that consistency, like what ratio of the stone is, it's a right fit. So it is, that riprap is in the wrong place. I would suggest that you move that for most needed and much needed Snap Finger Creek side, because that toe of the dam is very damaged. So I would like to see who is responsible for whatever was done wrong, if you find any wrongs. I find many wrongs, but you can see in this highlighted. Maybe Nat can put on a screen so everybody can see. And what is a plan or deadline to fix it? Do you have any, or you will just leave it like that? Because we heard a lot of environmentalists who said what will happen this summer, or what will happen in 6 months or a year. I don't think that this solution should stay there. I know people make mistakes, but mistakes are to be like, so we can fix them. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Come on up. Hi.
Brian Engel, Orchid. I don't know what I'm going to say next, but I guess it'll just come out. One thing that I recall from the wonderful Beach House meeting was suggestions for better communication to residents of Pine Lake with city staff business and upcoming projects and resident input, opportunities for input. And I know I often travel a lot, I miss things. I did fill out a survey on things that I would love to see in the city of Pine Lake. I remember that stage. I just don't really remember an opportunity to see a package with a riprap illustrated and described. And that doesn't mean that I didn't get it. I just don't recall. Probably some kind of a process or document on a website or something whereby in advance the citizens of Pine Lake can see what's coming up and on a timeline before it happens. Even if in this case perhaps I'm at fault for like, oh, I missed this. Yeah, before it happens, so that we can have some input. So I think that would reduce some confusion. I mean, it might create some more immediate conflict, but then it would be more of an honest conflict because it's like, okay, this is what the process led to. This is what y'all, whoever y'all are, want to do, and this is our opportunity to say, whoa, wait, you know, ask questions, or maybe have some input. So I would love to see something like that implemented, and I don't know if it's on a kind of spreadsheet or if there is software that can visually represent it, but as simple as possible. I know that my neighbor Mary had mentioned that. I think that's a good idea. Some form of tracking the decisions. So, and then my only other comment on Riprap Gate is that I don't like it, and I'd like to see it mitigated somehow, but I don't have confidence that it's going to revert back to something that looks more natural. So, thank you.
Thanks. Great, thank you. All right. Come on up. Thank you.
Calvin Burgamy, 4568 Dahlia. Couple of three things. One, I want to ask, I'm going to email the council about this too, is I had an idea for putting up trail cams that will record fauna that's going through the wetlands. We saw it in Mason Mill Park. Tina saw a little video, and I think it'd be, and if they're not expensive, and they're solar powered, you don't need Wi-Fi, you just record to a chip. So I'll also email you guys, and maybe if there's some thing that prevent that, we could talk about it. The other thing is regarding the current riprap foofara. The plus is that I think we as citizens are voicing our concerns and about the lake, and that's good. But I would also like it if people could be a little more proactive instead of reactive, which would entail like reading agendas that are posted, talking to council people about your concerns, talking to the mayor about your concerns and the people that work in the city. I think the mayor and the council always would like to talk to people. I don't know if any of them that say, no, please don't talk to me. And the third thing is I would like to thank the city employees for all the work they do. It's very difficult, and I would especially like to thank Mr. Kendrick for all the work he's done. He's initiated so many projects that have been good, the Oak Drive, pickleball courts, upcoming beach house renovations, and probably other things that I don't know about. So, thank you very much, Mr. Kendrick, other city employees, and the council as well. I just hope all this discussion could lead to, everybody having a way we want to agree, but we can chat about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Great. Oh,
Hey, Tina Kite, 4568 Dahlia Drive. I'd just like to express my appreciation to all the city staff and council for what you do. Thank you. And I can't imagine doing a job that's scrutinized and commented on by citizens. So your patience and your perseverance and your resilience is greatly appreciated. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Great. Any other public comment?
Tom Ramsey, 610 Spruce Drive. I'd like to express my support for the continued work on the dam, the wetlands, and the upcoming work on the beach house. I'm very disheartened by all the social media comments that I've seen. I've tried not to take part in them because they usually spread disinformation and they disparage staff who work much harder than they need to. I believe that the comments that I see on social media do not represent the majority opinion of this city. If I look at the people that I see on these comments, there's probably 30 people. We have 750 residents. I, for one, am very happy with the work that's been done thus far, and I look forward to it being finished and moving on to new projects. Please stay the course, and thank you for this, to the city staff for all the hard work that they've done on this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Christina Tweel, 4592 Ridge Drive. I'd like to ask what will be done with the western side of the lake that was, all the natural stuff was taken out in error. Usually companies, when they make mistakes, they have to fix it. So, I hope that they do fix it and that we don't take that cost on. And whenever in previous cities, when large growth or older trees have been torn down or damaged by companies or the city, and I know it's not our city, they usually need to replace with trees that of the same age, around the same age, those things that would help to return the way it was supposed to be. There's that. The second thing that I would like to ask, I haven't been here in a while, and I would like to know what's happening with our new pig pen, our leaf kind of situation. I know they came through once to different streets and gathered leaves. It's another year that we haven't been able to see any relief from that kind of stuff, and I think that was something that happened pretty frequently in the past. I would like to check on that. And there's also the issue that I brought up in the past with an AED being provided. I know that the city was going to try and get one, to obtain one. I don't know where we are with that, and who will be trained on it, especially our lifeguard or our person that's going to be there. And I know that there's been talk on social media of possibly getting some kind of community medical trainings for those things. So I would like to see if we can make that happen for our residents. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay.
Hi, Jeff Christensen, 610 Ivy. So I too want to say how much I appreciate all of you and the staff. You couldn't pay me enough money to be sitting up there. No way. I do want to tell people, or not tell people, but just say that, the staff does not report to the residents. They don't. They just don't. And the residents can't tell them what to do. And they need to be treated with respect and kindness and humanity. Let's choose humanity. I haven't been on Facebook for a year, and I just went back on, and I was like, oh my God, it's the same people stirring up the things, the same group of people, and they do not represent the majority. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Mary Schuman, 4551 Lakeshore Drive. First of all, I want to say at I think it was the last public meeting, when our new council members were sworn in, and Mr. Hawthorne, you were talking about the city orientation, and I asked if it would be possible if we could listen to that. And you arranged for there to be a Zoom meeting, and I will tell my neighbors it was a very informative, several hours, very concise, very efficient. I learned a lot, and I want to say thank you, A, for hearing me, and B, for making that possible. And I know that it's on the Pine Lake channel. Yeah. I can't tell you what that is right now, but I'm guessing I'm guessing Ned has that on the news blast. Number two, I really appreciate the council members kind of tag team community meetings, and I had some really powerful awarenesses at the chat with Jane and Deb. It occurred to me that a lot of people may not realize that we are operating with a different governmental structure now. The mayor is no longer the CEO of the city. We now have a city manager who is knowledgeable of all of the state and county and municipal ordinances that have to be followed. And I also learned that, and in the orientation, let me just add, Mr. Hawthorne supervises all of the city employees. So it just makes sense that if we needed to communicate something, that Mr. Hawthorne needs to be copied on it at least, or perhaps addressed. Instead of talking directly to an employee, because Mr. Hawthorne is their boss, and everybody in here, I'm guessing, is going to do what their boss expects them to do. But anyhow, it occurred to me that Mr. Hawthorne's job description is formed from all of the state and county and federal and all of those ordinances and things, but it's also shaped by the policy that our council creates. And so I would ask our council to look at some type of policy that addresses budget planning and purchasing that works within the annual cycle that I know from working in government. There's an annual cycle where there's windows of opportunity to make decisions. And if we can understand that in the city, then it would be very helpful.
Thank you, Mary. Any other public comment?
Kathy DeNabriga, 4641 Ridge Drive. I come actually to ask us to stop talking about the natural look of the lake. There's nothing natural about that lake. It is in nature. It is of nature, as are all of we. But that is a manufactured, man-made lake. And to talk about the natural look of it is, to me, an oxymoron. It is a man-made lake created by man-made or woman-made dam with specific engineering requirements. Now, whether those specific engineering requirements have been met to the letter of the law or not is above my pay grade. But I will say that I do have a lot of trust in our professional staff that if they don't know, they will ask someone who does, and that we have the expertise we need to make correct decisions. You look at Hoover Dam, a wonderful dam, but, you know, it's that's human-made. And to talk about the lake as if it just sprung out of a spring, which, as you all know, there's no natural lakes in the state of Georgia. So I'm really just asking that we understand what biases we stir up when we talk about the natural shoreline or the natural lake. And I have one tiny request, is if we could, through AI or someone who has a lot of time on their hands, distill the orientation from 4 hours into a, like, here's your top, you know, here's 2 pages that you as a working mother or a single dad would actually have time to read. 4 hours, I mean, I don't have either of those things, a job or children or a husband, but I don't have 4 hours that I'm going to devote to, you know, looking at the orientation, as wonderful as I'm sure it was. So if we can, I really applaud you, Ned, and everyone else for the improved, I believe, greatly improved communication that's been happening. I think it's terrific, but let's remember that not everybody can come to council. Not everybody can read or, you know, watch 4 hours of an orientation video, that we need to craft our messages in a way that people can actually have access to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
How are you all?
Hey, Barry.
Okay, thanks for your work. I just have one question. There's been, I've heard the word disinformation said quite a few times tonight. So I would like you to clarify something for us eventually, because in my deep dives and the people that I've communicated with have said that the original engineering report did not call for the riprap on the lake shore side. And there were council members who agreed that the riparian barrier there was healthy. It consisted of native plants. There were no signs of erosion. There was no need to remove it. So what did the original engineering report say? Because there were 2, and the second one said that the riprap on the shoreline was not necessary. So let's talk about disinformation, shall we? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
So I have a letter that a neighbor wanted me to read. He's across the country right now, but he was here at the January meeting. So I'll speak. Ken Colbreth, 4275 Village Square Lane, Stone Mountain. Hello, Pine Lake Council. I provided a copy of my comments to the person recording the January 2026 Town Hall meeting and stand by my assessment. A comparison of the 2 recent letters by AECOM confirms that my concerns are proving to be accurate. I recommend that the focus of our conversation with AECOM be on how to correct the current situation. When a project is issued with a vague scope like install riprap and lacks cross-section details for correct materials, it is unsurprising if a contractor defaults to the cheapest and fastest placement. The technical purpose of filter fabric is to prevent soil from piping through rock voids and losing support, not just to stop weeds. If the public works goal was framed merely as erosion or weed control, the filter requirement was likely misunderstood and undervalued. We need to ask AECOM for their proposed solution to this. On dams and engineered embankments, a missing filter layer is a structural risk, not a cosmetic one. Treating this like standard landscaping or lake edge armoring fails to meet dam grade standards. The city is using the fact that the dam is man-made as justification for their action. To be consistent, cities should also pursue solutions for the dam structure. The current riprap placement is not appropriate for a dam structure. The risk and exposure to the city includes: engineering risks, soil loss and erosion beneath the rock leading to settlement voids and higher risks of seepage pathways. Environmental risks. Sediment washing into the lake, turbidity, habitat stress, and potential reliance on herbicides to maintain a clean rock edge. And institutional risks. The cost of paying twice to redo the work, lower resident trust, and increased legal or insurance exposure due to the lack of a clear design. Regarding the Georgia Safe Dams program, while the Pine Lake Dam is currently exempt due to its physical characteristics and low risk of loss of life, the city must continue assessments as surrounding development could change this qualification. The inspection form for the upstream slope specifies removing woody vegetation and only armoring with rock if necessary. In Pine Lake's case, rock armoring was not required by wave action or runoff. However, if the city chooses to use riprap on a dam face, it must include filter separation and proper construction controls, gradation, thickness, toe key-in. It is the responsibility of the Public Works Officer to review the inspection report and ACOM letters and interpret the needs of the city. The timeline shows that the September 26, 2025 letter from ACOM supersedes previous correspondence. It clarifies that the dam does not qualify for registration and recommends only vegetation maintenance. The likely root cause for the current situation is that ACOM's initial inability to fully assess the dam due to dense vegetation triggered a risk reaction to act quickly. Having two letters with different framing created confusion and a narrative of false urgency.
Excuse me, Councilmember Hall, we're at 3 minutes.
Thanks. Any other public comment? Great, thank you.
Hi, Buffy Davis, 481 Oak Drive. Leaving off what Ken was just speaking of. This is what we should be presented with tonight, but we're being presented with the old report. This is the copy of the new report that was updated by ACOM. This is an engineering report that just as a registered nurse, I can read and understand. I'm not an engineer, but it's pretty straightforward. You know, the mystery of, okay, yeah, if the dam breaks, they've cleared up, we all won't wash away and die. So the hazard element can be taken out of that. It's not going to be registered as a dam under the Safe Dams program. What's frustrating to me is the agenda that was sent out and we all have in hand that was printed shows the September 9th report, not the updated September 26th report, which is why over and over again we come and fuss and scream and we hear you say, we hear you, and then we get this and that. So you guys, it's not cool what's going on, because you talk about social media, that's trash, but this is business, and we're being handed A and told it's B, and B it's told it's A. You know, the report from September 9th is what you're using to justify this atrocity. When this report even says, you know, the embankment is not your priority right now. You need to get your spillway cleaned up. And any riprap, item 2C, erosion monitoring and mitigation, like adding riprap to the downstream embankment of the Snapfinger Creek side. There's no mention of riprap at the level that has been heavy-handedly dished out on us at a high-ticket cost. And I don't care if it's SPLOST money or tax money, if it's not being used right, we are at risk. And we cannot trust you guys if you keep handing us stuff like an old report on an agenda when we've got an updated report that our city paid for. And I believe it. Why would we discredit a more updated report? Why are we looking at this old stuff and trying to justify this mess?
Thank you. I just want to give a quick reminder. I hear some profanities coming from the audience or the public here. Just keep applause and outbursts, please. Even if you disagree or you agree, decorum in the public forum should be observed. So, just like to remind everyone of that. Yeah, clap. Sure. Go ahead.
Katrina Davis, 498 Spring Drive. I have several questions, and my questions are, what is being done to ensure that the council and the city workers are being proactive and not reactive? We've talked a lot about the reactive responses instead of listening and hearing about proactive. And I do think, I will say, this is excellent. This is very helpful. I'm assuming that you put this together. So, well, with you in charge. So, excellent. I also would like to know what's being done to ensure that contracts are appropriately written so that things like a general riprap is installed do not occur, that they are appropriately supervised, that the work is adequately fulfilled, and that they don't require renovation or repair due to poor work afterwards, because that seems to repeatedly have been an issue. I'd like to know what's being done to ensure that input is received before decisions are made that negatively impact your neighbors, as well as the budget. And I would love to know what's being done to focus on needs. Needs such as the fiscal issues that were raised in the audits, and instead of wants. I have been someone who has spoken out about the pickleball courts. I have no problem with the pickleball courts, but I do have an issue with them taking precedence, and I understand that there was a donor that contributed a lot, but them taking precedence over the health of the lake. Because the lake is the reason for most of us that we moved here. Yes, the community is great, but that comes a little later. We were drawn to the environment, and I understand that the lake is not a natural, pre-existing thing, but it has been a natural environment, and that's what we were drawn to when we moved here, for many of us. And what is being done in order to ensure that the lake and those surrounding areas, like the wetlands, are being prioritized over things like the re-renovation of the beach house that was just renovated a few years ago. I understand that it would be nice to have a much more updated beach house, but at this point, the lake is the important thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Courtney Wasserberger. I live at 470 Pine Drive. I'm a new resident to the area. I really like karaoke and hiking and volunteering and crafting. So if anyone, council members, staff, or residents want to invite me to a party, I would love to attend. Thank you. Yes. Right on. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to new business. So we have with us, the first order of business is the comprehensive plan kickoff by the Atlanta Regional Commission. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Okay. Are you going to be controlling the slides for me, Ned?
Yes, I will. Just kind of give me a,
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and also the Pine Lake residents. I was going to go on a huge spiel, but I know you guys have a lot more important things to talk about later in your agenda. But I do want to say that I am super excited to be working with you all on the comprehensive plan, because this is the first community where I've seen such passion for what is happening within the city limits, that I know the engagement and the end product that we do all together is going to be really phenomenal, because it is going to be driven by the people sitting behind me. So I am so excited. But anyways, I'm going to quickly introduce myself for those who have not had the pleasure of meeting me, or me having the pleasure of meeting you. My name is Jillian Porter Willis. I am a senior planner at the Atlanta Regional Commission, and I am here to help you guys go through your comprehensive plan update, which is a state requirement that you have to do every 5 years. But there are more reasons of why we plan, if you hit the next slide. So, besides just trying to meet the state requirement and hit the deadline at the end of October, we plan and do a comprehensive process because our communities change so much within a week, within a month, within a day sometimes. Stuff is going on. As you can see, that there's stuff going on right now that is extremely important to the community. And so having this process where we get together and do some really kind of, particular in questions and engagement and activities together to talk about like how we're going to prepare for the future and how we're going to actually meet the needs of the people that we have here now. And then also to minimize weaknesses, build community, and just really help shape what the future of Pine Lake's going to look like in 5-10 years. So the planning is not just to meet a state requirement, it is to really get us all together and ensure we're on the same page. And so I am hoping I will see you all during the engagement we do, and I'll get into a timeline in just a second. But if you hit the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with the comprehensive plan process. So there are some elements that are required for all communities to update within 5 years in the comprehensive planning process. That's vision and goals, needs and opportunities, the community work program, which is just a list of things that you want to get done within the next 5 years, and then a conversation on broadband, the ability of people to access internet and get on the web and do things from their home. Now, when I say these have to be updated, it just needs to be informed by the community. So nothing may change about it. We might still have the same vision and goals, but it needs to be informed by the community, and we need to ensure we still have those goals and that vision for the future. And there are some elements that are only required for some communities. For Pine Lake in particular, you will have to focus on land use, kind of updating that, if there are any updates that are needed, which there may not be. Transportation and housing. Those are going to be 3 extra elements that we're really going to have discussions about. And when I mean having discussions, more of, I'm going to present you some updated data regarding transportation. For instance, I know you guys want to create a nice little main street on, I believe, Rockbridge is the name. So kind of give you some information on what that road looks like in terms of maybe crash data, stuff of that, so that you have it and you're aware. And then also housing data. The affordability, if that is an issue, I don't know, the community will let me know. And just having that conversation on what housing looks like for the future of Pine Lake. So those are kind of what we're going to be touching on when we're updating this process. Again, nothing may change. This is totally informed by the community. So whatever we end up creating is just going to be based on the people behind us. Next slide. So, as many of you are aware, Pine Lake staff has reached out to the Atlanta Regional Commission to help you guys through this process. And we are only kind of quote unquote required to assist with these few elements, but we really like to offer more and do a little bit more for the community. We don't want to just stop in and leave and just let it be like that. So I'm here from now until the end of October to really do what I can within my capacity to help engage and get the community involved and to ensure that what is given to you at the end is something that's really going to help you guide the whole community to the future. Next slide. So this is going to be the timeline that we're kind of working off of. So since you guys are using the Regional Commission and we have about 4 other comprehensive plans we're doing this year, we are kind of limited on our capacity and bandwidth in terms of the amount of engagement we get to do. But what we do plan on doing is having at least 2 steering committee meetings. And for those who don't know what a steering committee is, it's a group that is kind of built by the community, the staff and council, that will help steer the comprehensive plan update. There will be about maybe 6, 7 people that will be sitting together and kind of having these conversations and ensuring we're moving forward, and that I'm going to be presenting you what the community has said, and you're going to take that information and ensure you package it up into some actionable items that really get what they want done. So we hope to have the first steering committee sometime in March, and along with that, along with the steering committee, will be a launch of a survey. This survey will be built by staff and council to help kind of figure out what they really need to know from the community to help them out in terms of what they plan on doing moving forward. Now, after that, we'll have a community meeting sometime in April, and Ned's let me know that there might be something called a pollination celebration. So that might be where you'll see me at. I'm super excited about that. I was wanting to participate in a boat parade, but I heard that's later on in the year, so I might come back just for that. And then after our community meeting in April, we'll have another steering committee meeting, and we'll wrap up the survey. And at the steering committee meeting, we'll focus on creating those actionable items that you guys will put into this community work program and hopefully get done within the next 5 years. And so from June to August, I will be preparing a report for you. And for everyone in the audience, the report will look very similar to what's in your packet, if you want to go ahead and look at the 2021 version. And then in August, hopefully in August, the idea is to have the public hearing to transmit the document to DCA. You want to do it no later than August, just so you have time for DCA comments and feedback, because those take time to incorporate, because you have to have this adopted by council by October 31st. So by that date, you have to adopt it. Whether it's sent to the state by that date, it's fine. As long as it's adopted by then, and I can send it to them even the day after, it is fine. As long as the resolution is stamped before October 31st. So that is kind of the process that we're looking to do. And I believe that's probably the rest of my slides, if you hit the next one. Oh, wait, no. Sorry about the link being a little bit messed up. What we plan to do also for this is have a website, a landing page, only for the comprehensive plan. This is a website that will only last for the duration of this plan, but this is where we'll have the survey. This is where we'll have some relevant documents if there's anything that we want to ensure the community is aware about. And then there are some kind of frequently asked questions about what is a comprehensive plan, why are we doing this, that is also on the website. So I will ensure that Ned and staff have this link to share, and what I believe you guys have a newsletter so that all the community members can access this website, because it is for everyone. And so please, for those who have neighbors who aren't here tonight, please share this with them. Please let them know that this process is starting, because I am super excited to talk to you all, hopefully at the pollination celebration. Next slide, please. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of update you guys on what the requirements are and what we plan on doing within the next 6 to 7 months. And yeah, I think now it's time for the public hearing.
Thank you, Jillian. Great. Look forward to going through this process with the ARC, and thank you all for your assistance in this. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't know. That's a good question. Chris, for the public hearing, we open for public comment specific to the comprehensive plan, and then should we have discussion first with the council to ask questions before we open the public hearing?
That is usually the better course of action,
Okay.
Mayor, to be honest. The reason is that there's not been an appointment of the steering committee yet, so part of what the council needs to discuss is what the selection criteria for those roles might be.
Okay.
And then if the public wishes to comment further, they can offer either additional criteria or comment about the criteria that the council has talked about, but there needs to be some factual predicate upon which the public comment is even germane.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. Would you like to come back up? And we'll start with council comments. I had one question. In the what's required versus what is recommended, why is economic development not required for Pine Lake? And what does that mean in terms of the comprehensive planning process?
That's a great question. It usually has to do with what the county is doing. So, for instance, housing is required because DeKalb County has to do with the HUD requirement and stuff of that nature. So it kind of trickles down. So
Okay.
that is the only reason with that. We can definitely talk about economic development because I know
Okay.
that is kind of your guiding light for the future.
Yeah.
Considering we heard about that bill happening and wanting to make sure you have some commercial tax revenue, but that is 100% something we can talk about. I've already talked with Ned about making sure we have questions regarding economic development.
Okay, great, thank you. And City Manager, would you like to speak at all to the steering committee? I know you and Ned have been kind of working on organizing some thoughts around that.
Yes, so we discussed this some at the last meeting of council. The requirements of the steering committee as far as participation, there are two. One of the steering committee members must be an elected official from council, in Pine Lake's case. And then economic development must have a representative. And so we have reached out to a member of the community for that economic development role. That's probably the one name that we're still waiting to confirm. And it's not necessary, as the ARC has confirmed, and usually it's not the process where the council has to formally approve it. It should consist of elected representatives. We've got a couple. We've got economic development representative that we're working on, and then the balance of the committee, which will probably be around 6, will be staff representatives, including public works, public safety, and Mr. Dagenhart really handles but most of the transactional work that goes on with our consulting partners that deal with planning, and that in combination with the city clerk's role in keeping the public informed makes him the 6th member of the committee, and he is directly coordinating with ARC through Jillian.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
My question was just about the steering committee. Thank you for that. So, one elected official, which, Jane, is that you?
I thought it was both of us. It's Stephanie and me.
Okay. And economic development person that is in development, our city clerk, and then you said staff. Is there any?
Public safety and public works directors.
And then anyone else from the community, or do we have like a representative other than our?
Not at this time. I think the essence of having an elected official is, of course, representing the community, and then the community forums that Jillian has outlined. I suppose if there was someone else that you wanted to offer, it wouldn't be a required role, but we could certainly consider it. ARC has actually indicated that 7 is kind of a natural number, so right now we're at 6, so we can certainly be open to another member of the community or otherwise.
And I would like to add, we probably should not exceed 12 steering committee members.
Okay.
So, I know we have a really passionate bunch, and that's where we get a little tricky when you start inviting the residents, which residents should be involved in this. But when you start inviting 1 or 2, a lot of people want to get involved. But for the steering committee, it should really be 12 or less. So, of course, invite the community, but try to keep it contained.
And Mayor, let me just, I'm sorry to interrupt Councilmember Torrent. These meetings will have to be published and subject to the Open Meetings Act like council meetings are, because the steering committee is an agent of the city, which is an agency under the Open Meetings Act. Therefore, all of it has to follow under the Open Meetings Act. There's no more exclusions under the code for advisory committees like there used to be 100 years ago. And that's hyperbole. It was more like 20.
My suggestion was just that maybe someone from Plain, which is our community, Pine Lake Association of Involved Neighbors. And so I think a member of that, maybe up for them to decide. And another big driver, I think, culturally, I think, is Lake Fest. And so I think someone from there would be good. Either or. I'm not saying both need to, but I think one.
Yeah. We welcome a nomination.
Okay, great.
In the next week or so.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from council?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I don't mean to interject, I apologize. The one thing that, given Councilmember Torrance suggestions about people suggesting nominees, the council then has to confirm those nominees, and they become the council's appointments to the steering committee under state law. There's a case out of the DeKalb Ethics Board that specifically said that appointments from out that didn't go through the elected body were not valid appointments. So these still need to be appointments of the council, not from these outside agencies, even if there's a nomination from an outside agency.
So then could we, if, say, Lake Fest nominated a person and Plain nominated a person, could we affirm that? Would it have to be in a meeting, a public meeting, or could we do it over email?
The better course of action, Councilman, is that those confirmations would occur at a public meeting, because it has to be an affirmative act of the council to confirm those. So and I know the city manager is on a tight deadline, and part of that deadline is my fault because I pointed out all the things that we have to do between now and the fall. The challenge we're going to have is that, Mayor, that may require a special called meeting if we're going to meet the city manager's request that these nominations be available within the next fortnight. So just, I offer that simply to say that there are hard deadlines we have to meet, which ARC has provided to you today. There's intermediate deadlines which we have to meet internally in order to pass the comprehensive development plan, because it's an ordinance and it requires 2 reads by this council. So our deadline actually backs up from the final vote by a month because of that 2-read requirement.
Okay. City manager, is the intention to do the formal appointment at the voting meeting?
Yeah, I think the
Okay.
second meeting will lend itself to the city attorney's comments.
Okay, great. So then, as long as we have any final nominations to you in advance of that meeting's agenda.
That gives
Okay.
us time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other council?
Just one other one. I'm a social scientist, and I'm super excited about this. In addition to, you kind of mentioned being able to pull in data on transportation and other economic things that are going on within the county and the region, are there any other requirements for municipalities doing this with regard to housing, economic equity, whatever? Are there other things that we should be striving for as part of this plan that we may not know about internally?
I can get back to you on that. Can I think about that for a second? Like, otherwise, those that have been mentioned, that's kind of like the bare minimum, and anything other than that is more than the bare minimum, if that at all helps.
I guess I meant, like, is there guidance on, like, ratios of affordable housing per population or something like that we maybe should be folding in?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of research we do at the Atlanta Regional Commission that we can 100% include into this plan, and something that we're actually currently working on is a housing strategy that kind of might talk a little bit about the regional ratios and where housing should go and stuff of that nature, but that is something we can do a little bit more in depth if there's something in particular you would like to focus on. But yes, we have a ton of data at the Atlanta Regional Commission that we will be pulling in from all sorts.
Great. I'm going to sort of piggyback on that. I think the ARC is probably used to working with big cities.
Actually, we work with a lot of small cities. The last one that I've done is Lithonia.
Well, we're tiny compared to Lithonia. So I think that's a very unique opportunity for the IRC and you and your team to really, like, give us that extra special, like, we are very different. We, yes, Lithonia is a couple thousand people. We're not even. And that gives us unique opportunities, but also unique challenges. So I just encourage and invite that, sort of put that little special flair on it. And I think it's like, it's not often you get to study a place like this.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I'm also really excited about being on this committee. Residents here have been really great about emailing council with questions, and I really love that this process has specific, public hearings and all of that. Is there anything else you recommend, again, that's not required, but optional or suggested, as far as getting people involved in the process, communicating, like, besides the stuff we know?
more than one public engagement. So since ARC has 5 comprehensive plans we're doing this year, we really can't do more than one for each one, but we can provide staff and council with all the materials necessary to do more engagement, to repeat it and put it all across the city, which is, albeit really small. But again, we have a lot going on, but that's what I would recommend is
Okay.
letting staff take more of the lead of getting more engagement going outside of the 2 steering committees that I will be doing and the 1 public engagement that I will be doing as well.
Okay, great. That's helpful because when I was reading through the packet, I thought it meant we were limited only to those. So
Staff
that's
can do as much as they want to do.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. All right. Any other council comments? All right. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't know what that sound is, but for the public hearing, if you'd like to come up and make a comment regarding the 2026 comprehensive plan. This is a public hearing about the comprehensive plan. You can do so. I think the same standards apply. 3 minutes, say your name, your address, and all of that good stuff, so we can enter
Chris,
it
are
into
you,
the record.
sorry, Mayor, are you aware of anything regarding time limits for public hearings for speaking?
Ordinarily, the public comment rules still apply to public comments for public hearings, so it's the same rules we use normally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, just wanted to check.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Feel free to come up, state your name, 3 minutes regarding the comprehensive plan and the process.
Hello, Mira Alibasic, 734 Oak Hill Circle. So I just have one question about comprehensive plan. We had comprehensive plan in 2017 or 2018, and most of these agenda did not acquire, or we didn't do anything about it. How likely we will repeat those agendas in the new comprehensive plan? Are we allowed, or can we, or do we have to just start from scratch and make new agenda? That is a question for you. Thank you.
And I think for the moment, let's get comments. Sorry. This is an old dance. And then I think we can work this information in and respond. Great. Thank you. Any other? Great, thanks.
Wendy Keithot, Ridge Drive. I just want to say I'm very excited about this. Years ago in another life, I worked for the Atlanta Regional Commission, and they do great work. And I also want to thank Councilmember Trent for advocating to have a member of the public, at least one, on the steering committee. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kathy Denabraga, 4641 Ridge. I'd like to understand that there's required minimum meetings, but I would like to, I wonder what would happen if we really thought creatively about different ways to get engagement along a different scales. It could be, graffiti walls that you could write on during a breakfast or a coffee, or it could be a suggestion. I don't know. I think that we don't have to limit ourselves to this regimented structure. We're a creative city. Let's think of creative ways to get people involved, because I think then that would just tap into the reserves of talent that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Mary Schuman, 4551 Lakeshore Drive. Having worked for state government, I understand these comprehensive planning cycles, and I would hope that to the best of your ability, you are able to integrate them into how we do business in Pine Lake. In other words, this is an opportunity for you to look at and cultivate ordinances, policy that integrates public input into the planning, budget, purchasing process.
And so instead of it being an extra activity over here, I would hope that you're able to marry it with the real business and the goals that we already have established. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment for the comprehensive plan? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to. Yeah, would you like to respond to that one question that came up? Or any of them? Thank you.
What was the question again? I think I remembered. I had the answer when I popped up, and now I forgot.
Mira asked if the agendas in the past that were not
ones.
meant, if we had to go back to them, or if we have to start with all new ones.
What do you mean by agenda?
Like the previous plans, anything that we didn't achieve in the plan, is that?
That's a great question. Yes. So what's something that Ned's going to work on with staff is that we're going to take the previous kind of actionable items from the 2021 plan, see what has been done and what needs to be carried over. And part of that is hearing from the community, like, does this still need to be carried over? Is this still significant to you all? So no, we're not starting from scratch. We'll still have some stuff that was from the 2021 plan, but it needs to be informed by the community on whether it needs to be carried forward or not. So yes, we're not starting from scratch, and we're gonna keep on going with what was already done in 2021.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing about the comprehensive plan and also your enthusiasm for the plan. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to work with you, and it's been a pleasure working with the ARC in the past, so thank you. All right, we're moving on to new business item number 2, the dam project engineering report on the riprap and the update on the wetlands. Mr. Kendrick, hello.
Needless to say, I mean, this past 30 days, regarding this project is just the most stressful time trying to defend work. I've been here 20 months, and all the people I know are passionate about Pine Lake, but some forget that, passion is just not limited to the people who live here. It also is shared by the people who work here. And I think the city manager, when we were talking about other things, conveyed that most appropriately, that people work here and because it's a choice, and I share in that. And, just to have a recommendation, just taken so far out of context when it's an improvement, it really does sadden me. So, I've had enough sad and stressful times, regarding this over the past 30 days. So I just choose to focus now on, I don't want to use the term fix, I'm going to say mitigate the project. So over these past 30 days, what we've been working with the consultant is on a revised planning plan that takes into account, and let me say this because I'm saying this from right here, and I wrote something down, but because I don't want to get too emotional about it and forget and keep going over things again and again, it loses its effectiveness. But I think I'm at a point now that where I don't think I would do that. I don't want to seem like it was prepared. But we've been working diligently to provide you guys with a plan to mitigate the current project. And that includes a robust planning plan that could minimize the riprap that are on the bank. And I think And then what we'll do in short order is, because it seems what I'm hearing is that the public wants an opportunity to weigh in on future improvements, and I welcome that. And so what we're gonna do is bring back a robust planning plan that incorporates all the elements that we've been hearing from residents and citizens alike, whether it's geotextile underlayment, plugging, seeding, all the different elements, a variety of plants that, as long as they're shallow rooted, that don't undermine the structural integrity of the dam, to bring that back and put it on time frame that where we can still advertise for a registered landscape contractor that will do the installation, that will warranty the work for 2 years at a minimum, and provide the aftercare that is necessary to ensure that the plant life is growing and that the bank is being stabilized according to that plan. And so what should be a short turnaround, that we will have an outline before you, turn that into the proposal, get that approved and bid, and then hopefully engage a contractor to do the work prior to planting season. If it pushes beyond that, whatever plant life that is selected, ensure that it will mature correctly through the proper seasons, and there won't be any gaps, and that it'll ensure that everyone, whether you're for or against, has an opportunity to weigh in on the decision. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. First of all, thank you for being here. I feel like the sentiment is in some way like you're up here defending your position, and that is not fair to you. You are executing on the directive of the council, which is the position that you hold. The legislative body made the decision to move forward with the engineer's report. I know that that's been called into question. Is it the right report? Is it the right?
Well, let me speak to that.
I'd love for you to speak to that. Thank you.
The report in itself is not complete. It's not a final report, because we still had questions about certain things. Some of the things we were sure about that needed to happen. And I'll point to the downstream side. We spoke about that. We had several, which is my custom, of having people come out to take a look at it, to gauge what the cost would be to get that done. And it is access on the creek side is what would drive the cost up. So we had several people come out to take a look at it, and we found that it would probably be so cost prohibitive to do that we were looking for alternatives in order to present to you, not having to be able to do it as directed in the report. And I would submit here, consultants are a tool, and we have to use those tools just like anything else we use, take the good and the bad, and it is my job, I believe, to present to you the best option, because I know what budgetary situations we're in. I know what the capabilities are for maintenance. So I'm not going to bring something to you that is going to be so far out of budgetary considerations and maintenance abilities. That would be irresponsible. So, you know, and a lot of this, and I said to the city manager before, I hate presenting new ideas in public without the governing body being aware of them, because they're often taken out of context, because you don't have the time to deliberate on what those consequences might be, and so you could come to a consensus before bringing them to the public of what you would think would be the correct situation. I believe we did that previous, but we didn't have an opportunity to do that so much here because the report was, because we still had work to do on some of those things that we were looking at. If that is an omission on my part, I own that. Okay, I own that. But there's nothing deliberative here that, on my part or anybody's part, that caused any undue issues, I don't believe. Okay, they're all done in good faith. Okay, there's nothing that can't be mitigated. Okay, there are, and we've set up these meetings to talk about this. There are other considerations where we thought projects were going to be costly, where they're now been pared down to virtually nothing because of the additional study we've done regarding all these projects. The Eastern Wetlands fits into the dam project, that fits into the lake, that fits into Tributary 16, that fits into the Western Wetlands, that fits into actually Stampfinger Creek. So there's a lot of things that goes into this puzzle. Some of the things can be taken independently and done, which they have. Others need to be done in conjunction, or they need to be done systematically. All right, this is essentially one large drainage project. So we need to start at the downstream to ensure that we don't cause any upstream impacts. And I think that is how we've been carefully moving with these projects. So once again, we do have a plan. We can mitigate whatever's happened to the satisfaction of the council, the residents, and anyone else, visitors, those. It's not insurmountable. Any questions?
I've got a comment.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
I really wanted to be quiet this evening, but this has been an issue on my mind, and I think we'll have a lot more discussion later this meeting and with the planning retreat. We're going through some growing pains, and it really starts, I think, with the change in the form of government that we all have got to get on the same page with. And it really hit me. The mayor has started, in conjunction with the city manager, the last Friday of the month coffee. And we also had nice attendance. And one of the issues that was raised around our round table was the importance of making sure that the community, as well as the council, understands the new form of government. And it's just important. Education is always important. And I was thinking earlier today, as I was flying into Atlanta, and I don't want to be unfair to this new council, but my first year here was a challenge, but it was an enjoyable challenge. We did not have an easy council. We had a very mixed council, some who were seasoned, some who were relatively new. We had tough members of that council, some that were tougher than others, two of whom happened to be in the room and who spoke earlier. Tough group, but a good council. And Mr. Kendrick, who talked about stress the last 30 days, he had not had that conversation with me, but I had imagined, because I've had my own level of stress since the new council came aboard. Not casting blame, I'm just being very honest with you. So a tough council before, and I was thinking as I was traveling, it was a great year, tough year, but I can't remember having a stressful day. And now I find myself, even as I've said to this council already, for the benefit of the public, that I choose not to renew my contract, which is the end of this year. That I find that almost per communication from the governing body, that it stresses me to even open the communication. So something has gone off course. I will tell you, forget about Mr. Kendrick, the staff and this new council, as you've participated, you know I've talked about, Pine Lake has been fortunate to have the staff that it has. Loyal, caring, committed, and I didn't quite get it. Even as they were underpaid, significantly underpaid. The former council brought in the Carl Vinson Institute, renowned scholars on this subject, to study class and compensation, a requirement of the city charter, low-hanging fruit that had never been done. Employees didn't even have a job description. And what they found was, with the exception of your new city manager, me, and one employee who was hired in the last year by Mr. Kendrick, we were the only ones that were even within the range of our market. And every other employee was not only below minimum, but significantly below minimum. And I always give the example of the police chief. I hate to have to pick on her, but I want the community to realize, because I'm emphasizing your staff and what they have given. 20-year police chief who was making less than entry-level police officers in comparable organizations. And I will tell you, you may be small, we may be small, excuse me, but that's something that we've chosen, and it is not an excuse, because whatever other cities are required to do, I don't care if you're talking about the city of Atlanta or another example that was used earlier today, the city of Lithonia, maybe with a couple of thousand people. We have the same requirements. Therefore, you have to have staff who's capable of delivering. There's a lot to be said about the change in the form of government, and yet there's a cost that comes to it. And I gave you an article, I hope you've read it, in the Strategic Performance Report. We're going to talk about it more at the planning retreat. But the charter allows for departments and department directors who advise the city manager, who ultimately advises the city council. And they're in place for their expertise, for their professionalism, because you can do it the other way. And we go through a process, and we have advisors. I've shown you the table of organization. Visualize that picture. Each department, Public Works being one, I'm going to use that as an example, has other partners that the director works with and uses those consultants to help advise the city manager and the city council, who ultimately makes the policy decisions. So a lot has been said about the engineering report, and the engineer didn't recommend this or that. Whether that's true or not true, the engineer doesn't control decisions that are made. And I will tell you that Mr. Kendrick, before I even got here, because I heard the stories, the former engineer had made recommendations for improvements to the lake that the design itself would have busted the city's budget, even with the $2 million and the subsequent work that needed to come. It's Mr. Kendrick who came and said, this is bogus, the last city engineer that was in place. And this is the path that they were leading the city on. So there's nobody who has given more heart to what needs to happen in the lake environment. And so with this latest project, the RIPRAP, he went through the process that he was supposed to go through. The expertise that he had, dealing with the consultants, the engineers, and ultimately he had to bring forth recommendations that he believed would work best for Pine Lake. But it wasn't his decision to make. It went through the legal process, it went through the city manager, and it went through a tough city council that asked plenty of questions. So there is nothing that has been done that has been contrary to the governing structure that is in place. And so to get here at the beginning of the year, and I love the community coming out, but it's been hostile. It's been tough. And I wondered, what was the objective in not even giving the new city council, particularly the new city council members, an opportunity to get to even know their staff? The important thing about the new form of government, sometimes referred to as council manager because there's no longer the strong mayor, but there's also a form of government where it's just simply a strong council, committee form of government or commission form of government, where the individual commissioners or councilors, they run the government. So ultimately it's going to be your choice. For as important as the community is, and I know why I'm here, I'm a public servant. It's what I've wanted to do all of my career, to serve the public. And I'm very noble about wanting to do that. But I say it to the former council, hadn't had a chance to say it to the new council yet. I missed it in the orientation. A city manager has 3 constituents. The public, the reason that we're here, to do our best. Our mission is to build community for the public, for the neighbors. The other constituent of the city manager is the governing authority. My bosses can hire and fire me. Kind of like it's set up a little bit different. And the third constituency are the employees. So those are my constituents. But it occurred to me today as I was traveling, and I said this to the mayor in a conversation, I've got to make sure that the new council, as we talk about this form of government, understand that you too have different constituents. And the people that elected you certainly are chief. They're at the top. But you've also got employees who are the agents. In this new form of government, and even in the old form, you get nothing done if you don't have competent, dedicated, loyal employees. Now, I will tell you, at December 31st, 2025, your employees, my employees, our constituents, that one constituent, despite the low pay, we're probably riding a tidal wave of high morality, or I should say high morale, that I hadn't seen in an organization, usually dealing with low morale. But we've gotten off to a rough start. And it has dipped to as low as I can imagine. And Mr. Kendrick just explained it to you. He's stressed last 30 days. I had 365 days, because I started January 1, of working with the tough council, sometimes divided council. But I didn't have a stressful day. So we need to turn it around. But we can't leave employees out, not when they've done their best. And we're going to make mistakes. So, Mr. Kendrick, I didn't have a chance to talk to you today. And I know this has been a tough day of those 30 days. But you have my highest level of confidence. You have done things as you were supposed to, as expert as you are. I didn't know you when I came to this organization. I had to be convinced that we were going to be able to work together, and you won my confidence. One of the best public works directors that I have ever encountered. And I've worked for a lot of places. And I always say the city of Fort Lauderdale, but a lot of places. Pine Lake is fortunate to have you. I saw communication today where we need to communicate better. And it's a matter of philosophy. And I've tried to push Mr. Kendrick. He doesn't like being in a defensive position, but what he said to you earlier, he wants the opportunity to educate you. That's the reason that we've got the one-on-one meeting set up. We started with those 2 weeks ago. Those were his meetings that he wanted the opportunity in person to give you his perspective. And yes, he has taken it on the chin because he wanted to talk to you first, as opposed to just being defensive and responding to every comment. So that's coming. It's coming over the next week or so. So I say he won me over, and I'm not won over easily. More importantly, he had won over the former council. They had utmost confidence, even in controversial, and they pushed hard, including on these issues. So council, give us a chance. You've got a good, competent, dedicated, loyal, used to be happy staff, and I believe we can get there again. Community, please be patient. We understand your passion. And ultimately, we will get it, and we will deliver. May not be exactly as you want. That's where there has to be balance to passions. Because I think someone summarized it earlier. I think it was a former council member, Jean. That it's about what is best for this community. We build community. Not necessarily the loudest, but the community. But you're also, as you will learn as we talk about the roles of council and staff and so forth, we are a representative democracy where council members have been empowered to represent the community based on the best information that you have. And if staff's expertise is left out of that, we're not fulfilling the new form of government that we have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Hawthorne. Any questions?
I want to say I echo everything Mr. Hawthorne so eloquently said. Thank you. One thing that struck me when you came on, Mr. Kendrick, is that you bring an expertise not only as an engineer yourself, but also in watershed management, your certifications in floodplain management. You have a unique skill set that is perfect for the city of Pine Lake. And I think that, you pointed out earlier that you have the multiple engineers' reports. You also have multiple conversations, daily, likely, with the engineers. You have conversations constantly with the environmental consultants, with the surveyors, trying to piece together the information to make the best decision to bring to council, the most comprehensive information that you can, that's then also balanced against our financial constraints. For instance, the original dam project that Mr. Hawthorne was speaking to, when you came on and you said, that's bogus. I mean, the engineering for that was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then the proposed bid set was well over the $1 million mark, and kind of an egregious scope of work. One of the things that has been really valuable, I would say, is that you've functioned both as the public works director and a project manager, administering projects so that we could do them under maintenance scopes where possible, as opposed to entirely newly engineered or newly permit-setted scopes of work, which has, because of that, across the board, in the 20 months that you've been here, has saved the city hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, like probably in the $300,000 or $400,000 across the projects that you've done so far, not even including the rest of the dam work that needs to be done. So it is upon us to lean heavily on your expertise. One of the things that I think I've learned, I know I've discussed it with the rest of council in this process, is specifically when it comes to something that we're all so passionate and vibrant about, the health of our lake. When we make decisions, it's a two-way street, right? Our challenge is to make sure that you know what's coming, what decisions have been made, when work is going to happen. I think we have a situation on our hands where we made the vote and we started work, with public notice, went out via email, but we started the work pretty immediately after, in hopes of continuing. The dam and the shoreline is one piece of a really complex puzzle that you've been working on for the past 20 months that you've been here, which starts with the engineering at the head wall in the Snapfinger Creek, and re-engineering a gravity, probably, system that feeds both the wetlands and the lake, all of the repairs that need to happen to the junction box. There's so many pieces to that. And then also understanding the lake as a flood control mechanism. So we were really lucky when Hurricane Helene hit us that it didn't really hit us. In Asheville, where they got 36 inches of water in 32 hours, that equates to a 30,000-year flood event. Not even on the hydrologic charts of naming storms. So to look at our lake, when we talk about it being an engineered asset of the city, you've approached it that way, that it's also a flood control mechanism. Had the city been hit by Helene, we'd be in a very different situation than we are. So part of the, as I understand it, in our conversations and information that you've put out to the public and conversations with the engineer, part of the recommendation of armoring, as it's said in the report, armoring the shoreline or the upstream slope as it's referred to, is being able to protect against blowouts in our dam should we have events that are more common, such as Helene. And we wouldn't need anything that extreme. And part of the engineers' information gathering to view the lake as a flood control mechanism is understanding the high water level of the lake. What does the lake actually have the capacity to hold? And in order to accurately get that information, not just because the dam is potentially undermined by the woody vegetative growth, which it references in the report, but also to get the information to understand the actual high water level of the lake, the engineer recommended that we be able to actually investigate that visually, and that was part of taking out as much vegetation as we did. So that's really important piece of context, and that's something that we've spoken about in public meetings. We've put out emails. We've had private meetings with individual constituents, but I think kind of framing that context is really important. And then there's also this question of the riprap, or the fabric. And I know you and I have talked a lot about the very specific reasoning behind putting no fabric, with the intention that the vegetation that is allowed to grow then through the stones that are there will help to fortify the dam also. And you also mentioned something about the visual inspection. Can you kind of speak to that?
The original goal was what we call a vegetated riprap cross-section there. And what it was, the arm of the bank, putting the fabric there would kind of undermine the, because you want to, when you do the inspections, part of that is looking for animal burrows. And we do know we have turtles on in the lake, and those turtles are burrowing animals. And if they burrowed underneath the fabric, we wouldn't know that they were there burrowing until it might have created a chasm in there. So by eliminating that and going to a vegetated riprap section that allowed the riprap to adhere to the bank, and then put the vegetation there to grow in to fill in the cracks, that would kind of eliminate the opportunity for a burrowing animal to undermine the upstream slope.
Yeah.
So that was the thought behind that. But as I said, moving forward, to give the public the confidence that they need in order to do this, the vegetative plan will take into account minimizing riprap, maybe replacing it with a geotechnical type of armoring underneath that could satisfy the fabric, situation that everyone, is alluding to, but it still would allow for the vegetation to come back through the fabric, the geotechnical fabric, and through the rock. This is a low maintenance type of approach here because we're only a two-man department. And what I also say is that it is budget friendly for us. It would still give the aesthetic look that everyone is looking for that was lost when the woody vegetation was removed. So it's just a different way of looking at it. Not saying one is right or wrong, but those are the types of things that I understand that the community wants, and we can give that to them in short order. And it'll also satisfy the other, directives or policies that the new council wants to put in place regarding, you know, other things with that. So we can move quickly to get this done with the public's involvement. We'll make sure we'll provide a list of maybe 15 acceptable plants that could be placed, that would grow and not exceed the height and requirements that would undermine the dam. They could be flowering plants, perennial. We've talked about eating, bulrushes, those types of things that grow at water's edge, those types of things. Whatever the community council would like. So that being said, you know, I'll try to get that outline to you ASAP. Hopefully I can have it by the retreat. You can get some input there. I'll get a list of the plants, those types of things, and then we can move forward quickly with the design. Make sure it is incorporated into all of our permitting. All of 3 of our core permits are expired, so everything that we're doing moving forward, including this project, has already been talked with by the Corps, and that they know that we are putting those into place. And even with whatever we select as far as our alternative in the eastern wetlands, that will be coordinated there, so we won't lose any time getting that done.
Thank you.
So, if I'm hearing correctly, because I feel like this is our great opportunity to clear the air on all things riprap. So, if I'm hearing it correctly, among the factors that you considered in coming up with a strategy to protect and preserve our dam-like structure were the 2 reports from AECOM from September, the 9th and the 26th, or whatever they were, as well as other factors, other inputs, your own engineering expertise, et cetera. So the riprap as it stands now, without the underlayment of the fabric barrier, is all consistent with the broader strategy for management of the lake and Snapfinger Creek and the eastern and western wetlands that is all sort of planning to come online in the next few months. Do I have that right?
Sort of. What I've always been consistent about, and I'm glad he's here because he can probably attest to this if he can remember, is, you know, cautioning patience, number one, because it was going to be a long process, and also, and as you know, Councilman Goldberg said, minimizing the future impacts to maintenance on the city, because there's a small pot of money when it comes to maintenance. You can build all the projects you want, but if you don't have anything to maintain it going forward, then you might not should have undertaken the project. We identified maybe 6 months ago, and I'm pretty sure I did, I know I did, identified that the stormwater funds are probably our best opportunity at dedicated funds to be able to maintain the wetlands and the lake going forward. And that's why part of all of this included a maintenance plan of saying, we've got to maintain the downstream slope. It's going to cost X amount of dollars to mow it correctly twice, 3 times a year. We've got, we considered a couple of options regarding pumps, and we put together maintenance costs for diesel or electricity or, you know, simple upkeep of pumps, those types of things, versus what the gravity-fed option that we presented. But it always came back to what can the future cost bear, and that small pot of money that we only had, that we and we mentioned this to the city manager, that there had to be some mechanism that we could dedicate those funds that where they only were used for those specific purposes. And his suggestion to me was that we had to itemize those to ensure that that was what those funds were for. And I also mentioned to him and to the mayor in a conversation recently that we were approaching DeKalb County because we didn't think we were getting our fair share of stormwater funds based on that there was increased impervious area being added upstream in the watershed that were contributing to our wetlands and to our lake. And we thought it fair that there be a reassessment. AECOM has tentatively put on their radar, because we're going to bring a proposal back to council of doing that study, because it involves calculating or going back through all the building permits that were built in the upstream in the watershed for DeKalb County, so they could quantify that versus what we have today to be able to base that upon. And they have the particular mechanism to do that because they are DeKalb County's watershed's engineer of record. And they just completed a study for the airport of where they found that the city of College Park has overcharged the airport $80,000 per year based on what their assessment is. I feel that they can find those same savings for the city. If it's $10,000 or more, then that is a benefit to the city. And that helps us maintain the infrastructure that we're putting into place. But keeping in mind that we are operating at a minimalist cost for the maintenance, and we're designing or implementing projects at a minimalist cost so that we stay within that parameter of what we have today. If we get more money, then that's fine. That doesn't mean that we increase the level of service. It just means that we have more money in our sinking fund to carry over into future years, because there's also, and I'll share this with you also, that the results of the survey indicate that the creek is filling the lake. So the sediment that is coming from Snapfinger Creek is impacting the lake. So somewhere in the near future, there lies another dredging project on the horizon. So those funds would be dedicated toward offsetting the cost for dredging and other maintenance activities surrounding that. And I heard someone say earlier about impacts to the western wetlands. And that also, the western wetlands is directly affected by the water level in the lake. But there's some issues with the outlet for the lake that feeds the western wetlands. And that's pretty much the next type of project that we need to undertake. It's not a huge project, but it's a necessary one, because we might end up having to replace the gate valve that controls the outflow into the western wetlands.
Thank you, sir.
One follow-up question, hopefully a quickie. Regarding saving city money, what have you heard from vendors about replacing the plantings along the western shore of the lake?
That's included in this planning plan. Also, that's included is the infiltration basin that's along Lakeshore Drive. Apparently, over the last year, something has gotten into that basin that has kind of killed the plant life there. But it also needs to be dredged out, but it can only be hand dug out because we don't know if it's possible that there's a underdrain in there that actually helps filter that out, but we don't know, so we won't put equipment in there. So we're going to specify, you know, hand digging it. So regardless if there is no under drain in there or not, we think it'd be prudent to just hand dig it out and remove the sediment and replant it rather than, you know, destroying anything that was under drain that was that's in the basin.
So I have a question about the purpose of the riprap. So I guess can you explain? To my understanding, riprap is used for erosion control, and it's usually used around moving water, but that's not why it was used in this case.
Okay. The 100-year floodplain essentially reaches about a foot below the walking path. And right now, that would, previously we had no idea of what the normal pool of the lake is. We've confidently established what the normal pool is now. But regarding floodplain management, there needs to be freeboard in the that impoundment area. So right now we've got about, I say typically freeboard is about 1 to 2 feet. So that means we can only increase the water level going up that bank about another 2 feet to maximize the water level in the lake. Above that, if we get a 100-year or probably even a 50-year storm, then it starts to have an impact on the bank. So yes, it is to armor that bank of the upstream against potential flooding issues that if we get a near catastrophic or catastrophic event that feeds into that lake. So yes, that's the one purpose, moving the woody vegetation, provided for erosion control. Second, provide floodplain management, as opposed to when we start adding additional water into the lake itself.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if there's many people in this room who remembered when the lake did flood. I maybe see 1 or 2 people who lived here when houses all in the eastern wetlands basically were underwater, and literally FEMA came in and funded them to be literally raised a story to get out of the floodplain. So part of the design of the lake was the western side of the road is a spillover for flood. There's so much that is involved in this process. The balance of the lake water by letting water in, but then also letting water out from the lake to the western wetlands. It's part of how we keep the lake healthy. That also keeps the algae blooms down. It keeps healthy ecosystems going. If that's not working for whatever reason, we need to fix that. I know right now there's a potential, one of the things, I don't know if people know, in the eastern wetlands, sewer lines run all through that. If you walk that, you see manholes that the sewers are right in the middle of the wetlands. And so balancing the Corps of Engineers, DeKalb County, watershed, stormwater, sewage and drains, I mean, it's crazy how much is involved. And I think one of the things, if anything that we've been remiss at, is not really helping everyone understand the complexity of it. So in my world, what I try to do is really look at, well, this is what we got, what can we do to go forward? What are the learnings from this? So for me, learning is better, and this has been a mantra as long as I've been on council, is better communication.
Let me also mention something that just happened yesterday. Former mayor was walking out and found that there is now a sinkhole in the wetlands that might be attributed to a collapsed sewer line. So, or it could be a sinkhole where it is, escaping the Snapfinger Creek. but we had to make contact with Watershed so that they could send someone out. They have a contractor that specifically comes out and checks the sewer lines in there. So they're gonna actually televise the lines to see if they have a collapsed line. And so the other, if there is a collapse, it is a potential that there is sewer flowing into either the wetlands itself or it is flowing into Snapfinger Creek. So we're kind of coordinating that, but that just puts on the radar of future. And we didn't know that the sewer lines were there because they're all down there. So there is the potential for overflows. And if it gets into the supply chain going into the lake, then we'd have, you know, E. coli outbreak, which transfers into, if we get into the swimming season, where we wouldn't have a swimming season if it didn't have an exceedance.
Yeah.
And that's even beyond the natural E. coli from the waterfowl that are down there. So all of that is balanced by in these projects also.
Yep. So, and of course, you called them and they jumped immediately and said, we're going to be there yesterday.
Well, I have, I mean, I have a good working relationship with them, and they also know that they've got a mandate from their new director to be more responsive.
Yep.
And so they are, you know, they're working with us. You know, we've had water main breaks on Hemlock and Magnolia that they've responded to quickly.
And that's one of the things, again, I don't think we've had in the past before you, is had relationships, because, again, years ago, DeKalb County did all of it for us. They've walked back everything. So you having those relationships is paramount to us getting things done.
Yeah.
So an example is we can't pave all the roads because there's sinkage happening at sewer mains, at manhole covers. We can't do anything because it's a county issue. All we can do is report it to the county and request them to come and do it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the things that we've talked with them about, because, you know, they've got a consent decree and they've got a couple of $2 billion that they need to spend that they haven't programmed at all. So we're kind of trying to work with them regarding, you know, spending some of those funds to, you know, to fix some of the, you know, things that haven't happened, long-standing issues. So, you know, once, if they agree to that, then, you know, we'll be impacted in a good way, but, you know, it's in a necessary way.
Yeah. So again, I'm not going to question, everyone else has questions about the riprap and everything. I'm more concerned about what we can do to move forward, recognize that you're a one-person operation with a staff of 1 to 2 at times. You're managing projects, you are planning for the future, and yet we demand more and expect more, and you also demand that of yourself, as I know you. So one is I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're trying to balance getting things done with not just the cost of it, but also the cost of maintaining it in the future. Because if we fix it now and we can't pay for it, and that's what's happened, is we fixed it and we didn't pay for it. That's why we are where we are now. We didn't maintain things. So so you're taking the long view of that, so I appreciate that. We can always do better, all of us. And one is, I think it takes some courage for you to stand up here and be willing to say what you said. And so as a human being, I thank you for that.
Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Council comment.
It was insinuated earlier that this is a machination of mine, or like that I am responsible somehow for this public opinion. I just want you to let you know that that is completely unfounded, untrue. I have spoken to people separately and have taken their comments, and I have never disparaged your character or your name. I've always said that we need to work together to move forward, and that we can do that, and had full faith that we can make this work and work together. So if anyone suggests to you that this is a thing that I'm trying to do, this is some kind of crusade, I want you to know from me personally that that is completely untrue. In our time together, I have asked you questions, we have disagreed, but always with a sense of respect and the full faith that you are working with the best of intentions. And my questions are coming from the best of intentions because I don't understand, or want all of the public to understand better. So with that being said, I'm going to ask a few questions. And this isn't a personal vendetta. I don't know. I'm really thrown off by that. First of all, you mentioned the 3 core permits are expired. Where are we on getting those reinstated?
You don't reinstate them. We have to apply for a new one. Okay, as I said, it goes a little bit more in depth because of the option, the final option that I'm going to present to you guys of where we need to go and what type of permit we need to pursue to go. And we want to do one permit. This will be a nationwide permit. It'll take us all the way from the head wall all the way to the end of the western wetlands. And that's going to make sure we include any other future projects that we even haven't identified yet, because we didn't. The bulk of the work that we did was in the eastern wetlands and then on to Lakeshore Drive. There wasn't much, because there was, to study in the western wetlands, because we were getting flow in there. So that's going to be the approach, or the recommended approach, for the next permit application.
And that'll be, is there a timeline for that?
As soon as I finish these presentations and either get a consensus or bring it back to you, hopefully, since we're more than likely, I don't want to speak and crowd the agenda, because, we've got, hopefully we could do it in March at the work session. That way, what I'm saying, these next couple of meetings, you can be fully informed. You can workshop it or whatever you need to do of, the whomever, and make sure everybody's, got their opinion heard on what should happen and what shouldn't happen, and then come back and discuss it, and then we'll finalize, and then we'll move forward with whatever option that the council decides to do. Because it has changed since we did a preliminary presentation. I can't remember when it was, maybe it was July or August, where we had the 3 proposed options for the wetlands.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, my next thing was about the mechanism for community input, which...
Yeah, I think what we heard here is that the community, in the last 30 days, the community wants an opportunity to weigh in on all future projects. So what we've done is kind of drew a line on past projects and looking at what hasn't started and that needs to go forward, and even this project, treating it like a new project and putting it in the public domain of saying, what's the thinking here, what's, what does everybody want to see, and then we're not down the line so far that we can't, decide what, or have some decisions made by additional input.
Two little things. One thing that people have heard, that I have heard from them, is that perhaps perhaps there was a consideration of using herbicide, and I would like you to address that and hopefully say that that is not a plan.
Can I
Uh,
speak?
we
Go ahead.
we have to consider all options. And, you know, it's not my choice to say we're gonna use herbicides. But to be prudent about this thing, you know, I have to put a cost assessment, and then there has to be a cost benefit to it of saying to maintain the dam face, to manually mow it is gonna be $15,000 per cut versus if we do vegetative management like, let's say DOT does it, with a herbicide to where it's, I'm just throwing numbers out here, you know, I don't know, I'm just trying to give you a differential here. Manual cutting could be 15,000 per cut, whereas herbicides would be 2,000. You have to consider it. I understand what the sentiment is in the, I've heard it since day one. We don't want pesticides, we don't want herbicides, those types of things. And we haven't used them. We don't even have anything like that in the shop. We never considered them. But if you're talking about, you know, saving, you know, money, you have to consider them. Whether it's off the table or not, that's fine. There's other considerations that, you know, were tossed about, controlled burns. People with asthma might have a problem with that, but you have to consider them because you could get the Forest Service to come in and do a controlled burn for free, and it will accomplish the same goal. So those things have to be considered. It's not say it's a recommendation of mine, but it's a consideration, and I think that's what my role is, to give you all of the options, and your job is to make the decision.
Let me just go ahead and give you 3 reasons why that will not be a consideration of mine. 1, in the entrance to the eastern wetlands, there's a sign that says absolutely no herbicides, strictly prohibited. 2, if we use herbicides, then we can't apply for B-City. And 3rd, there's no way to keep herbicides sprayed on that riprap from running into the lake where we all swim, and that defeats the entire purpose of having the wetlands to take out toxins and to take out pollutants. And then if we're just going to put it right back in.
Okay, but see, that's not a consideration on
Please be quiet.
It's not a
Thank you.
consideration for herbicides on the upstream side. What I'm talking about is maintaining the dam slope on the downstream side. But here's what I'm, it's not an option. It's not an option, you know, but I'm just trying to do my job and provide you with the options. If we're saying, and I'm hearing this now, it won't be an option.
Thank you. That's
Okay, that's fine. It won't be an option.
And my final question is, how was riprap decided to be used on the shoreline? I guess with the engineer recommendation saying that it wasn't required, how did we get from them not saying it was necessary to that being the choice that was made?
Okay, they're only responsible for the dam structure. I'm responsible for floodplain management. And that's partly the reason it was stability based on recommendation for the dam structure, but it was also a recommendation coming from a floodplain manager looking down the road of a catastrophic 50-year, 100-year storm that is going to be impounded in the lake. So that's where the consideration came from. Like I say, consultant is a tool. His specific job was looking at the dam and the dam only. My job is looking at the dam and the lake and the floodplain, all inclusive. So I couldn't consider any recommendation that was, we have 3 different projects here. We have the eastern wetlands, which one person in the office is working on. We have the the lake itself, which another person is working on. We have the dam, which another person. They're all three separate specialties. But when it comes back to me, I have to be able to put them together and make a cohesive decision to present to you guys on how to manage the entire system. Not just, we can't have one thing here and the other one kind of defeats the purpose of it. I keep saying what I've said all along. We can't just pour water into the lake without knowing that, number one, that it can go out and at what rate and have the impacts downstream. We can't just keep pouring water into the lake and not know how high the lake is going to get and the capacity of the lake, okay? And we can't also just pour water in the lake without knowing what the water quality of it is. Like I said, we could get all the water that we want into the lake, but at what quality? So we're looking at that, and that means looking at the diversion box and making sure that 75% of the water that's coming through that single channel that's being fed by Snapfinger Creek is going into the wetland to be filtered that eventually goes into the lake versus the 25% that is going into the lake through the flume that helps to maintain the level of the lake. And that's another decision that popped in my head, because eventually those 3 gate valves that are in there are gonna have to be replaced. But that's consideration of what's gonna be included in the permit also.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your response, and I hope that you that you know me well enough to know that I want us to work together, and I appreciate your work and your expertise. Thanks.
Just a couple things, please. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being generous with all of this. I just have 2 things really briefly. One is that I really do appreciate you considering all possibilities, however unlikely some of them are in Pine Lake, because I think from a budgetary standpoint, that's really helpful when we justify if we're going to higher costs. So this is way outside of my wheelhouse, so I'm really grateful that we have someone who's thinking about this from a budget standpoint and all of these pieces, because it's complicated and people are going to be upset some way or another. So I just feel better making informed decisions, even when I want information about things that I don't like, is basically what I'm saying. So I appreciate that. I just want to be really clear. The other thing I just want to mention that Mayor Hall talked about earlier, as far as consolidating this event, really trying to bring all the things in that I think hasn't been mentioned so far, is that a few people have asked about the Army Corps of Engineers, and a lot of, maybe y'all haven't thought about this, but this is like so far beyond Pine Lake, and something that Director Kendrick has mentioned to us is that it's a very understaffed agency at the moment. So some of the delays here have nothing to do with him and nothing to do with Pine Lake. And I mean, I don't want to speak for you, right? But I just want to, like, whatever you want to add to that, but just wanting everybody to know that if they don't.
No, we've been consistent. Everybody knows what's going on with the federal government. A lot of people are leaving because of what's going on, those types of things. There is what I think a potential, I don't think that department has any potentials for work stoppage this week, but there's always the potential. When we find it very hard, once again, to talk to our counterparts at the Corps to get direction. We did have them come out on 3 separate occasions for field walks based on the potential projects that we were doing. So we took that opportunity to get a lot of information from them, knowing that they might not be able to come back or communicate. So a lot of things were left with just go ahead and submit us what you proposing, and as long as it fits within the confines of the nationwide permit and don't violate the Clean Water Act, then they're more inclined to just give us a blanket approval. But we just knew we needed to make sure, since like the other permits have expired, we need to make sure we got everything that we wanted into the permit application to get approved at this particular time. That way, it'll be easier for down the road if we needed to reapply for any other things. So we were going to be very deliberate and intentional about doing that, and I think that we're moving that way. We're going to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. One other thing I mentioned, I don't know, the pig pen. Last year, it was 2024, I'm sorry. We brought forth a list, and that's one of the other things we'll talk about in our one-on-ones, where we had the equipment list, and we had approximately 27 pieces of equipment in the Public Works Department, and ended up 19 of them were unserviceable. It's a good word. And we surplus those. And so on that list, you will recall that the truck that pulls the pig pen is a 1997 Ford F-350. We sent it to the shop, and we spent about $3,000 because it hadn't been serviced probably in the last 6 years. So that they did, and the other thing I was told at that particular time, that they don't make the parts for it anymore, okay? So the possibility of, fixing at that time were, nearly zero, so they just changed the oil and greased it and those types of things. Well, the engine is gone. So we do have a cost estimate to replace the engine. We do need to do some refurbishments to the body of the truck in order to be able to, use the piece of equipment that was purchased for leaf removal. But also at the same time, we've run into problems where when we're trying to operate it, number one, we talked about manpower, and you can only operate it safely with 3 people because you need a blower. Number two, the amount of congestion on the streets during the day with service people and those types of things kind of limit you accessing certain roads. So at this particular point in time, yes, the vehicle's down. We do have a plan to replace the engine. We just need to get with the finance director and find out where we're gonna get $9,000 to replace the engine. And in the interim, what we've been doing is blowing the leaves in the streets, and that works quite well. Yes, it's a little cumbersome, but it does work. We probably average about 5 or 6 streets, but now's my time to say this, with the Green Space Master Plan, basically said we have a 76% tree coverage in our area, which is great because the greater metro area only has about 46% on average. But what that equates to is approximately 95% of the trees that contribute to the majority of the leaves in the right-of-way are on private property. So, we're doing our best to keep up with that. And, it starts with, proper equipment to be able to get that done. But we just haven't let that stop us from collecting leaves. We've just used an alternative measure.
Thank you.
Could I add something?
Yeah. And then we still have 2 more.
So my understanding is the real purpose for the leaf truck is to make sure leaves aren't getting in the stormwater, not cleaning the streets.
Correct. That's a permit for our MS4 permit.
Right, so we don't want leaves clogging
No,
the drain. So
No.
I know, does that mean then it's each individual homeowner's responsibility, the front of their property, to clean their street?
Well, that's one of the things that we need to talk about, because I realize that might be an unpopular issue, because I know people are paying to bag their leaves to have them hauled away. I don't know specifically if it's just on their property that they're doing it, or are they just leaving the leaves for in the right of way for us. Some people are cleaning them, but I just want everybody to know it's not a deliberate act to say we're not doing it.
Right.
It's a manpower issue. It's an equipment issue that has been conveyed previously, and we were looking for more cost-effective solutions. You recall you approved street sweeping. Well, some of the, when it rains, it mats the leaves down. They can't, so you kind of not be able to do it that way. So it's just a combination. You get a couple of 2 or 3 real dry, fair days, and then on the 4th day, you can be able to go do what needs to be done.
So I think that would be a good thing to also clarify, because I think there's an expectation the city's responsible for cleaning the street leaves.
I think that's...
And I don't know if that's the case or not. So I think that's a good clarification for us to work on.
Yeah, that's something fairly new that's been brought forward, and, so I think that might be something that need to be brought to the council for discussion. It's just like one of the other issues is on-street parking that limits us from doing, and I think that's in the ordinance also. So, Chief and I have had discussions about that and how, but the other thing is during the day when we're working to get this done, we have a lot of service vehicles because we have people on construction on, like Orchid and Dahlia, and then Hemlock especially, and then some of the one-way streets, where so we try to work around those, but, it does impact it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Okay, we've still got 2 pretty dense agenda items here. It's now 8:40, so you can stand up while we move through it. Okay, the next item on the agenda under new business is the implementation of ordinance 2024-05, the registry and regulation of short-term rentals. And I believe this agenda item is sponsored by Councilmember Torrent. So I'll hand it to you. Yep, we can hear from the chief. Did you want to tee it up at all? As a sponsor of the item? No? Okay.
I just, as everyone remember, we had so much conversation and work on our short-term rental policy. It was a unanimous decision by the council. After so much public comment, we had a town hall about this, and I think it's time that we start implementing based on the experts from DeKalb County and working with FIFO, helping us plan for that. So I think now's the time.
Okay. Test. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Pine Lake residents. I was asked to prepare something in reference to the status and where we are on the registration and regulation of short-term property, the ordinance that was passed, I think it was August 2024. So the long and the short of it is that staff has taken, so far we've only taken the initial steps toward implementation, which includes reviewing of the administrative requirements for that particular ordinance, also identifying the enforcement and compliance, what that looks like for a city our size. The key considerations that we have, the key considerations for the implementation of this is establishing and maintaining of some type of registry. It's not an Excel spreadsheet type registry, so that's just number one. We have reviewed one code enforcement piece of software that we thought was going to allow us to manage that, but it was not, and our code enforcement officer is kind of looking for some type of software and doing some more research to see what other agencies or what other municipalities are doing to manage that. Also, verification of ownership. A huge challenge is that, I give you one example. I have a property that is a Airbnb, but now the owner is allowing someone to temporarily stay there. But when I want to send certified documentation and I look that property up online, it's coming back ABCD Clubhouse Drive. We don't have mail service, so where's that going? So then we get stuck trying to navigate. So just verifying ownership of, and local contacts of some of these locations and home coordination. One of the big things that we keep saying is resources. City Manager Hawthorne explained all the requirements that other agencies and municipalities have. We have those same responsibilities regardless of resources. They come with the territory. Developing, and that's coordinating with myself, code enforcement, and even Ned, because it's gonna be it's a three-piece suit here. Developing clear procedures, complaint intake monitoring, and also public communication, because like I said, a lot of these properties, most of the properties that are on our blight list, God bless you, that we're having issue with, the owners are out of the state, and some even out of the country. So in short, this is not one of those ordinances where you can go a little bit pregnant, because trust me, either you is or you ain't. So that's how we have to look at this right here. At this stage, staff is focusing on ensuring the ordinance is implemented in a manner that is feasible, sustainable, aligned with our available resources. Like I said, it's police, code enforcement, and administrative support. We're actively reviewing software solutions and capable support. And of course, we also have to include our city manager, to put the cherry on top to make sure that we are heading in the right direction. Realistically, what I can tell you is that I am now, since we're getting a little bit of, the water's starting to settle a little bit, we are working on an outline so that you guys can better see the steps that we're taking to comply with that. I know the excitement because I almost said FEMA. Yeah, because FIFA is coming. I know the excitement, but this is the kind of thing that when we do it, we really want to do it right, because we'll end up shooting ourselves in the foot with some of these short-term rentals. City Manager, do you want to say something?
I never like to make excuses, but I do like being realistic. So I need to do a little bit of review. And this council hasn't had a chance to go through a budget cycle. It's coming, and probably will start with the tax season. You'll remember some words that I said back at your first retreat where you were visiting. We've got some tough times ahead. Last summer, May, June, following the retreat of the council, code enforcement in general was absolutely clear to me that it was a priority of the former council. They had discussed it in previous retreat sessions, and what came out of the last spring retreat planning session was to address another big code enforcement area, and that's the totality of, I forget what the chapter number was now, maybe chapter 16, but public nuisances, which is, to execute it properly, you've got to have code compliance, code enforcement. So we were optimistic in the amended budget for 2025, and I do want to say about the 2025 budget, because I've heard commentary of 2026 budget that was adopted in December, on December 9th, that there wasn't sufficient time, and there might not have been sufficient time for some, but it's not because we didn't meet the legal requirements. The city attorney caught, as we entered budget season last year, that there's a 45-day requirement for the council to receive the budget before it has act upon it. To my knowledge, that was the first time that the council had taken that much time. Another thing that I said when I presented the budget was the 2026 budget, there was nothing approved in 2026 that wasn't approved in the 2025 amended budget. In fact, the 2026 budget is less than the 2025 budget, which was adopted in April after several work sessions. One of the things in balancing the 2026 budget that we had put in the 2025 budget was to fund code enforcement. There's no funding, period, for code enforcement. We've got a police department, and you've got a police chief who's cared enough and been interested enough that she has kind of taken code enforcement to do what she can, and she's got a reserve officer who I think works 1 day a week to follow through on code enforcement. So in the amended 2025 budget, not addressing what could be called an unfunded mandate when it was approved in 2024, but certainly the public nuisances chapter, we put in a placeholder of $50,000 for kind of code enforcement, maybe other community development, but code enforcement was the focus. That was one of the things that had to be removed from the budget of 2026 in order to balance, recognizing that I know that there's heavy heartburn because I have it myself over how we're going to sustain this budget that finally address class and comp issues. So we'll have plenty of time to come back on this. In the meantime, this police chief has said we're going to be as diligent as we can to try and make some progress, incremental progress, knowing that we simply don't have the resources. Cities that address short-term rental, and it's pretty much a national phenomenon, cities who aren't interested in Airbnbs and so forth. But it requires organization, it requires registration. Software has been developed, but software comes at a cost, but even if you have the software, you have to have the resources to implement it. So I apologize for my excuses, but it is a challenge going forward, recognizing the concern that Councilmember Torrent has expressed with a season of World Cup soccer. We're probably going to feel more of the impact.
Let me just give a little bit of background on that. There is a company that works with GMA called HDL that does the administration, bookkeeping, and collection of those fees. And when I last checked, they charge $500, I think, about per case, which is the cost of the permit that was kind of worked into the ordinance. So I think we can that might help some. And I know that there's still a lot of administration like work that has to be done, but I think that they could help do some heavy lifting with you. So if I can check that out with you, or if you want to do it HDL.
I welcome any kind of assistance, because it is kind of still like new with just a lot of agencies as short-term rentals continue to blow up. But again, that's only one part of it, and that's a great part, you know, and that registration is a huge part. But then you have enforcement and compliance, and you have all of that. So I'd rather make some good, strong, solid moves than try to rush it and, you know, like I said, shoot ourselves in the foot. And it won't be just a oopsie. It'll be, we'll land ourselves in some type of legal trouble with how we're enforcing it, or if we're unequally enforcing it, or we haven't grandfathered in, you know, these folks who've been doing it forever. So, you know, it's going to take some time, and we're actively working on it, and we're doing the things that we can do right now, which is to identify those homes. You know, it's like we're big enough, but then we're small enough to kind of say, okay, we're going to focus in this area to see, you know, who's rental, who has a rental, and just specifically kind of getting contact numbers. Like I have my own personal registry, like everybody calls me, you know, who lives on Spring, and, you know, and just to like enhance that so that we know who the owners are. So when they do, and then even notification. I mean, our biggest thing we keep on talking about is communication. She just talked about AEDs and CPR. I give a class every 2 years, and it's in the paper, and we do an article, and they presented it here in council. So there is a push and pull in communication, but that's a big part of this as well. So like I said, I'm gonna work on an outline, share, and we'll build it together. So if you guys have any other questions
I have
about that?
I have a comment. This was something I brought up because Council Member Lowers and I had a meeting with Commissioner Bolton last year over Teams, right? And short-term rentals came up, and she very specifically encouraged us to coordinate with DeKalb, right? Around the ordinance and the enforcement. So, I mean, I don't want to get in the middle of your, you know, like, but just to bring that in as far as like maybe the ordinance needs to be sort of brought into DeKalb's, but also that's a way to share the burden of enforcement and also the budget.
Right.
She's specific, but like it was kind of like marching orders, sort of like this is the thing for y'all to do is how it landed for me. So.
Yeah. And they're having a hard time implementing it and pushing it. I got about 4 Airbnbs that my city, my what is it? It's not an HOA. It's a covenant that we're working on because it's not implemented. It's not easy. And I do have I have some really great communication with the code enforcement and just some other folks at DeKalb, just because we kind of do that. We push and pull because unfortunately our governing bodies will put something out for implementation, and we're stuck grappling, you know, with all the moving parts.
Right.
But you know, it's a good ordinance. Like city manager said too, we had a tough council, you know, and they picked it apart and rebuilt it. So it's a good ordinance, you know. And a lot of times with these ordinances, they do look at other agencies that are the same size, you know, rather than reinvent the wheel, do a little bit of customization to it, you know. So yeah, but I'm open to any of that. Anything that's gonna help us to kind of move it forward, because I do look forward to, just from a security place, being aware of who's who. Because I always find out about an Airbnb after the fact, or because there's a noise complaint, or because a door is left open and they forgot to put the code on, and I don't like that.
I have
Jeff, sir?
two things. One is, I don't think a lot of folks realize how well you know our community chief. So,
my business.
is it okay if I share?
Yeah.
So, what was it? A week ago Saturday, when it was supposed to be the ice storm, I got a call from, I love the supposed ice storm. A call from a resident saying, "Hey, I just ran into a neighbor who was up at the post office. She was pretty." Not very coherent. She's had health issues. She was walking around just in a very light jacket. Can you know, the neighbor lives around the corner from me, so she thought, well, maybe I could go and check on her. And I said, well, let me reach out to Chief, because Chief can do a wellness check. I texted you. You texted me back. You had actually, within like 10 minutes, had a phone call with the son who was with the resident, and clarified that she was being taken care of, she was okay where she was staying, and that she was in a good place. So I sent that out as a accommodation, just acknowledgement to this governing body, but I wanted to share that with the residents and go on record that I don't think people realize the care you take for our residents and are not aware of that, and you're also the type of person who doesn't pat yourself on the back for those things. So I loved that. So thank you for that. The other question, and maybe this is for the two of you, is I'm still kind of intrigued by, we're so small and there's other small cities, can we investigate an IGA, intergovernmental agreement, with other small cities to share somehow a code compliance officer? And thinking like we don't need to be paying for someone full-time, but between, you know, Stone Mountain, Lithonia, there's other small communities that maybe that's something we could look into as a way to creatively finance and get coverage. I know there's other wonkiness to it in terms of, well, they need to know the ordinances are going to be different from every city they work in. But that's something I'd love for us to explore.
It's definitely on the table. It's something that I kind of nudge from here and there and encourage them to kind of sort of like collaborate, like, do you guys have this? Will you come and take a look at this? But, you know, folks are pretty stingy about their code enforcement, except for when it's time for them to have their annual training, and they're like, yeah, you pay the conference fee and everything else. So right now, I have the only thing that sucks is time, you know, but I have a really great code enforcement officer right now, and I think he also works school resource. So I think the kids have a break next week or whatever, so he'll actually be here next week. So I'll be just loading his plate, and he's one of our reserve guys. So, you know, he's already, we've already had like three of our main properties that have dilapidated houses on it. They're back and forth in court. One or two Ned, have demo or waiting demo permits. We got a lot of stuff going on. He's dug in deep with some of these apartments. They were having a lot of issues with just some structural stuff that we even had to pull in the engineer and some other folks. So they, you know, it's like we try to do a little bit of high and a little bit of low. I know that we have properties where, you know, it looks like a village if somebody's living on the front porch, you know, but it's like just a little bit, because we're creating this new norm and trying to find our balance. You know, we've got these gardens that are manicured, and we got others that are, you know, pollination, you know, areas. So we got some stuff that's coming this year where I want to even do a walk and talk with my code enforcement officers, so we can stop, you know, talking in theory and actually put foot on the ground to say, yeah, that part is good, but we need to cut that. So I think we do have to come to a standard and something that we can kind of all live with and know that everybody's not going to be happy. So.
Thanks, Gene.
Thank you, Chief.
Can I throw one more on this dog pop?
Yeah.
Hopefully in a good way. So at such time as it becomes a practical thing for us to collect the taxes from short-term rentals, my understanding, because this is now what I do in my spare time, is read state statutes, is cities can collect up to 8% of the rental fees. There are some stipulations in the state law about how that money can be used. 43-ish% has to be used for to promote tourism in the municipality. Another 19% has to go toward tourism product development, like signs, parks, et cetera, to enhance what tourists would be there to see. But then 37% is unrestricted, so perhaps once we get this engine up and running, the short-term rental phenomenon can help fund not only some of the pretty parts that we'd like to see, but also an officer to enforce them.
Councilmember, if I can interject, please, ma'am. There is a 2-level limit on the amount of hotel motel tax that can be assessed by a local government. The floor is a 5%. It has to be enacted by ordinance. To get the additional 3%, you have to have legislative authorization by local act of the legislature to give the local government the ability to collect that additional 3%. So as far as I am aware, we do not have that local act as part of Pine Lake's history that allows us to collect the 8%. We are capped at 5%. And the 5%, the last time I looked was about 10 years ago, but my recollection is it's a 50-50 split for the 5%. That is 2.5% goes to the general fund, 2.5% goes to tourism development. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I remember from 10 years ago.
Let me tag in here real quick. Yes, the 5% was what we chose because more than that takes a lot of administrative work, and like the 6% and 7% and 8% that does have to be approved by the legislature. we have to have like clear buckets of this 1% will go here as administered by this person, and it was a lot more than we felt that we could do. But I think the 5% is unrestricted into the general fund, and it doesn't need to go into tourism until you do the 6, 7, 8%. But let's look at that.
Okay, I may have misread that. So, thank you both.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for your update on that. All right, let's move on to new business item number 4. I believe this is our city attorney. Orienting us to the charter as Stanley, City Manager Hawthorne.
Chief's been beating me up with that stick all night, so I got a little bit of revenge. The conversation we're going to start tonight is one that we've had at least one time before with the prior council. 3 of you are going to hear this for the first time. If I can ask the city clerk to bring up my presentation, and y'all will have to break your necks to look back over your shoulders, or I can invite you to find some of the seats that are now empty behind me to be able to hear better. Then I can turn around to the other side and speak that way rather than this way.
We've got
That's-
monitors. I think it'll pull up on the monitor if
Okay,
it's on this.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So, orienting new elected officials to governance requires that I distill talks that I give over 2 and 3 day seminars to lawyers and to elected officials around the country into much, much less than that, right? So we're going to be talking very quickly about the different types of government and then how the current government in Pine Lake as adopted in 2024 actually is supposed to function, okay? We can go to the next slide, please, sir. So generally speaking, in Georgia, there are 3 common forms of government. You have a strong mayor, which we'll talk about in more detail, but essentially the mayor runs the city. They hire and fire employees, they decide how money's going to be spent, they do all of the things that go into the day-to-day operations. You have a mayor-council form of government, which identifies those, which spreads the work out a little differently, and sometimes the mayor is elected out of the council rather than being a separately elected official. And then you have the council manager form of government, and almost universally, the GMA really pushes local governments now to adopt council manager forms of government. The National Civic League has had a history for almost 100 years of advocating for council manager forms of government. The International City County Managers Association, ICMA, advocates for council manager form of government. The International Municipal Lawyers Association, of which I'm a member, also advocates for council manager forms of government. There are 2 policy reasons for that I'll get to, but fundamentally in 2026, the vast majority of those people who do this work every day, whether it's at League of Cities, National Civic League, ICMA, Government Financial Officers Association, what have you, all of us believe that the council manager form of government is a preferred mechanism by which you govern at the local government level, and we'll explain and discuss why that is as we go through. Next, please. So this slide didn't copy over very well, but functionally this is the strong mayor form of government. You have a mayor who's elected, and then they run the city. They can, if they choose, appoint an administrative or a chief administrative officer. That's what we have had in the city of Pine Lake in the past. And the council does what it does now. It adopts policies, sets precedent, and adopts ordinances. But the operational choices and the operational mechanisms by which the mayor functions is largely left to their discretion. The mayor in a strong form of government also has the power to veto ordinances. Your current code, and we'll talk about this when we get down the way, but your current code retains that aspect of the strong mayor form of government, but it limits the veto right to only ordinances. If you look at the DeKalb Organizational Act, for instance, for DeKalb County, that creates a bicameral form of government. You have a CEO and you have a legislature. but the CEO can veto both resolutions and ordinances. So that's a distinction that describes how the strong chief executive officer can be different in different circumstances.
Do you want me to pull the PDF version so they could see the, I don't know how
No,
important
this
this
is the
chart
only
is?
this one to do too, I think. So the current council manager form of government creates a situation where the mayor functions as the face of the city. They're the ceremonial head. They preside at the council, the meetings of the governing authority. But the day-to-day operations are left to the city manager. The purpose for this is to delegate to a professional, that is a person for whom this is what they do all the time and have done for some period of time, that they have the professional qualifications and the professional experience and the prior the history of the course of their employment to understand how the system works and how government is supposed to function in a way that is fiscally responsible, fiscally appropriate, and gets the mission as assigned by y'all done. Council still has the power to define what policy and priorities are. The execution of those policies and priorities is left to the city manager. There is no direct authority of this body, the governing authority, over staff. You have, we're going to talk about it in a second, you have functionally 3 folks that you get to order around. If we have next, please. So Pine Lake's a little bit of a hybrid. And I'm just a big fan of Griffin, so that's the reason you got the picture that you have. You retain some elements of strong mayor. You obtain a new form of government where you don't control the day-to-day operations. The council, normally in a strong mayor form of government, the mayor appoints the city attorney. In your charter, the city council appoints the city attorney. And then the city manager recommends who the city clerk ought to be. And then the council confirms that appointment. So there's all kinds of little strange choices that have been made, and I say strange not to mean weird, but different than normal or different than usual, that are found in your charter that don't exist in other charters. Next, please. So what does that really mean? How does that really function in the day-to-day operations, your interactions with staff, your interactions with your constituents, because your constituents only know to call you. The benefit this gives you is I can't direct staff. I can call the city manager and ask where we are and ask what's going on, and I'll get back to you, but I can't direct Mr. Kendrick to go to your house and clean up a mess that's from a city tree that's fallen in your yard. All right? So it gives you an absolute defense to all those demands that you take immediate action. And I'm saying that with everybody behind me wanting to throw daggers at my back, and everybody who's listening online saying, well, that's not right. I said, well, that's what the charter says, which is what the governing document that the legislature has said is how we function in Pine Lake. Mr. Hawthorne and I both said this last year when we came into our offices for the first time. The charter is the place where we begin when we discuss governance in this city. The benefit we have to the charter is that, first of all, it was written by a really good lawyer. And I will admit this as long as the day is long. Your last 2 city attorneys are people who taught me to do what I do. They taught me everything I know, but not everything they know. So I have a lot of respect for the 2 women who've preceded me in this job and with this client. My point is that when we begin talking about how we do things in Pine Lake, the place we start is the charter. And if the charter has a problem in it or a conflict in it, we have to try to figure out a way to resolve that conflict within its own terms. For instance, you have no control over who the city manager hires except for department heads. The council has the authority to confirm the hiring of a department head. You don't have any ability to fire that person. You don't have the ability to recommend somebody else. There's no power or authority in the charter on its face for you to interview that person to see if they really are the best choice. But you have the power to, despite all of those things you can't do, you still have the power to say to the city manager, no, we don't really like your choice. I think that conflicts with other parts of the charter, and I've said that publicly to this council and your predecessor council. So I don't know how we reconcile those things. I think when we get to the 5-year anniversary of this charter in 2029, your Charter Review Commission will be tasked with looking at these and asking, what do we want to make changes to? And part of what we're going to do is try to clean up some of those things that I think probably cause conflicts. Next, please. 3 people y'all control: the manager, the attorney, and the clerk. That's it. You saw that some this week when Councilmember Kohler sent an email saying, I would like a legal opinion on this question, right? Her direction to me is a statement that I want this done, and it will get done. All 6 of you have that power. It's a change from the way we used to do things in Pine Lake, where all requests for legal opinions had to go in through the mayor, all right? I don't say that to give myself enough to do, because I've got plenty to do. I say that because it is my duty as your lawyer to explain how the system is supposed to function so you have the answers you need to make the decisions you're being asked for. And if you don't know what the rules are that constrain how we do things, then you can't make good governance decisions, and I haven't succeeded as your lawyer by making sure you stay within the lines of what governance means. Now, if we go to the next slide, we'll find out one thing. With Mr. Dagenhart, he is not just your clerk. He does about 9 other things. You have the ability to ask him for records or to do things within the confines of his role as the city clerk, as approved by this council. But you do not have the ability to talk to him about zoning questions or licensing questions or development questions or any of the other 9,000 things he's doing on a particular day. So you have to be careful when you're talking to Mr. Dagenhart that you're only asking him directly to provide information with his clerk hat on. We've talked amongst ourselves about the fact that we all wear different hats under different circumstances, and that from the day you take the oath of office as a council member until the day you set that role aside, you wear 2 hats in your public and private life. Ned's got about 1,000. Next, please. The city manager, we talked extensively already about the fact that he is the chief, basically the chief administrator or chief executive officer for purposes of operations. Next slide, please. He prepares the budget. He's the first place that the agenda comes from with the concurrence and discussion with the mayor. They directs staff, reports to council, attends all of your meetings, and all the rest of the things that he's supposed to do on a day-to-day basis is listed expressly and explicitly in the charter in section 2.28. Next, please. There's been a question in the last few weeks about who manages, who's in control. All of you is the short answer. Every time you meet is an opportunity to evaluate the performance of your city manager and say, yes, you're going in the right direction, no, you're not going in the right direction. But the only way he or they can know what you want is by you communicating with him. I talked in the previous slide about the fact the mayor is supposed to attend all of your meetings. Meetings does not expressly mean just those meetings to which the Open Meetings Act applies.
Do you mean the city manager?
Yes, the city manager. City manager is supposed to attend. Mine's a little more discretionary. I only show up when y'all tell me to, which means most of the time. But the long and short of it is that the city manager is supposed to be a part of every discussion you have. And to not allow him to be part of that discussion deprives you of his experience, deprives you of his training, deprives you of his input, deprives you of the ability to know what his staffing limitations are, deprives you of all of the fundamental things that you need to know to figure out whether or not a particular item can be ready for an agenda or is an appropriate place for an agenda item. I will say the same thing is also true of your lawyer, but slightly differently. I don't have to be involved in every conversation, and just because I'm copied on a conversation, A, doesn't mean that I'm going to bill for it, nor does it mean that I'm going to weigh in on it. Because if it's a policy question or a logistical question, it's not my wheelhouse, not my place. And I'm trying to be very cognizant of what my role as your lawyer is and stay in that lane. So every time that I'm included does not mean that's a 0.1 billing entry on my timesheet for y'all. What it means is if there's a legal question embedded in there that you may not even know is a legal question, I have the ability to say, this is something you need to be concerned with. We need to flesh out what it is we're trying to accomplish to know whether or not what we're wanting to do is strictly legal or not. If you read my website at all, you see the very first thing that we believe in as a law firm is helping government get to the decision it wants to make. We are not here to try to get in your way. Now, it will sound like that from me a lot. I guarantee it. Because I will start my conversation with you almost always with, what do you want to fix? What are you trying to fix? I had a council member in a city in my past that was just enamored of the idea of alternative transportation opportunities. One of the things he wanted to do was build a gondola, literally, I'm not making this up, wanted to build a gondola from the local airport to a large industrial center to move people who were coming into the city and flying their private planes to the local airport, because it did not have commercial air service, more quickly to where their businesses were in their city. And I kept asking him the why question, or the what question. And finally, after about 2 years, when he says, why do you not ever move on this? Why do we never get anywhere? I said, all right, let me ask you this. How many people do you know that are going to own a $25 million private aircraft that they fly around in so that they don't have to stand in line at an airport, are going to get on a public conveyance and ride however many minutes it takes to go from point A to point B? And he stood there and looked at me like I had poleaxed him. I said, answer that question for me, I'll move forward. And that was the end of it. But not every idea is that outside the box. My goal and my mission and my role as your lawyer is to help you get to a yes. How do we get you to a place where you can do what you're trying to accomplish? Now, the written memoranda and the things that you get me that are the risk management documents that we have to have will look a whole lot like I'm saying no. But pay attention to the fine print and the conclusions. There will often be a roadmap in there in our communications. We'll say, here are the 5 things that need to happen for this to work. And if you're willing to go through those 5 things, then we can get there from here. Some of them may not be possible for whatever reason. Some of them may not be possible because they're distasteful. Some of them may not be possible because you have different fiscal thoughts about a project than others. There's all kinds of things that get in the way to a new piece of legislation. But we will work diligently to make sure that you have those options presented and you then get to make those choices, because that's your role. or to make those choices. It is not our role as staff or your lawyer to say, I've determined that this is the right thing. Generally speaking, what you're going to hear on presentations on projects or ideas that come from the administration are going to be, here are all the things we've considered. We've narrowed it down to these 2 or 3, or maybe even just this one for all of these other reasons. But here's all the other things in the universe that we've considered that either don't work or aren't fiscally responsible. We can go next, please. Now, this last bullet is the one I want you to pay the most attention to. As your lawyer, under the Georgia Professional Responsibility Code, and Georgia calls their rules of professional responsibility differently than every other jurisdiction in this country, so I always stumble over it. Under Rule 1.14 of the Georgia Professional Responsibility Code, my client is the city. Not any of the 6 of you individually, not the city manager, not the city clerk, not the department heads. It is the city. That means the privilege that I have when I communicate with you privately belongs to the city. It cannot be waived by any one of you individually, or by the city manager individually, or any staff individually. So if there's an opinion that you get that you want to be made public, it requires a majority vote of the council to make that happen. And I will guarantee you from the bottom of my heart that I will fight tooth and nail to have that ever happen. In my 30 years, I've only had one council vote to reveal the contents of a legal memorandum that I published to them. And I very nearly quit over it. So it is something I want you to consider if it ever happens with appropriate gravity, because it goes to the heart of the mutual trust that you and I have to have together in order to function as a cohesive organization. Next, please. So, here's where we are so far. As a council manager form of government, the operational chief is this gentleman here, or whoever his successor turns out to be. It is not any one of you, and it is not the mayor, as it was before 2024. The focus of this, at least for this part of the conversation, I want to be on 2 things. Governance at its heart is about listening. Listening to each other, listening to constituents, and listening to your subject matter experts. Y'all have already shown the innate ability to ask good, pointed, insightful questions. So you bring a lot to this process just by virtue of who each of you are. That's usually an acquired skill for an elected official. Y'all walk in the door with that skill. Where I urge you to focus your energies and I urge you to focus your growth is on your ability to listen critically. And critical listening, like critical thinking, engages a presence of mind that's not commonly present in ordinary conversation. If I'm at dinner with friends, I'm, much to my own chagrin, often thinking about what I want to say next rather than listening mindfully to what my colleagues or my friends are saying at that meal. And I don't mean this to be directed at anyone in particular, but the more extroverted we tend to be, the more we are likely to be like that. I'm naturally an introvert, but I know that's probably hard to recognize. but I am an introvert who is socially able to be an extrovert. I then have to go sit in a dark corner and recover from that experience. So where we function as a group and what we're going to function better as we work together over the coming months is the things that you've already said publicly matter to you. Being respectful, listening carefully, and paying attention to not only the what is being said, but the how and the why of what's being said. Because all of those things together go into the course and scope of the communication that's trying to occur. And only by mindfully paying attention, and I'm too old to be a Gen Xer, just barely, but I'm also way too old to be a millennial of any sort. I don't really like the word mindful, except that it communicates being present and paying attention. And that's the key to governance. And it's the key to making sure, as you consider these hard questions, whatever they may come up to be, taxes, budget, staffing, payroll, how do we fix whatever the hole that we see today that may exist, whether it's a real one in the ground or a intangible one in the budget document. Whatever those holes are, working on how you listen will empower you to make better decisions because you'll have a fuller understanding of what the concern is and what the problem is. And being able to ask the administration, help me understand this better because I'm not following where your conclusion's coming from. As your lawyer, I will never say enough. I will never say that's a stupid question because I don't believe there is such a thing as a stupid question. The only stupid question I've ever known is one that somebody didn't ask me because then they went and did something that I wish they hadn't done and I had to go fix it. So where all this lands, and I'm gone on for much longer than I intended to, and I apologize, but where this lands is the governing document is your charter. You should each have a copy of the charter. You should each take the time to review it, to read it. You can skip the first section because that's just about some of the legislative annexation that was done as part of the charter bill. The part that starts is where it starts talking about the form of government. It's actually the part that tells you how the government's supposed to work and what your powers are. Start there and go forward from there. But the document will inform a lot of what your questions are. And if you don't understand it, or if it seems inconsistent, I'm a phone call or email away. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I know I threw a whole lot of jargon, a whole lot of information at you in a very short period of time. As I say, this presentation in other fora is 90 minutes most of the time. So it's what I do. When you do this, as long as I have, trying to convey succinctly what you know means you leave out a whole lot of detail. So forgive me for the absence of detail, but I hope it helped understand some things. Mayor?
Thank you, Chris. And also, thank you for that. It's been highlighted many times. It's a really important distinction, the way we've done it in the past in Pine Lake and how we are obligated to do it in the future and the present. In our GMA facilitated planning retreat that's coming up next Monday, one of the early agenda items will be a review by GMA of roles and responsibilities. So I encourage you to just take this information, sink it in. And that's intentional because we're having our planning retreat prior to the newly elected official orientation and training. So yeah, that's a lot of information. And then there's the lived experience of it. and the questions that come out of the friction of lived experience. So it's an ongoing discovery, I think, that we're all in currently. Okay.
Could I?
Yeah.
Is suggestion would be, is it possible to get this presentation on the webpage for residents to see this as an educational piece?
It's either up now,
Look at you.
or VC3 will take care of it in the morning.
I should have known not to ask. Thank you, Ned.
Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion before we move on? Okay, great. Let's go for our final public comment. Same rules apply. 3 minutes. Come to the podium, state your name, your address, all the things. It's yours. Thank you.
Mira Lebarsk, 734 Oak Hill Circle. I have a question about council manager. So will we still have a town hall that we can ask a question to the manager? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a town hall on the 23rd.
Yes, I know it.
Yeah.
So we are we right now in that acquisition, like city manager and council? Did we start that already?
Yeah, in
Okay.
2024 it went into
Yeah, okay.
effect.
So we
Yeah.
will still have town hall.
Mhm.
So will the town hall be just about that wrap?
No, the town hall is going to be a state of the city and where we're headed, the work ahead of us.
So
Yeah.
I would just like, with full appreciation, and I feel sorry for whatever we are going through, but I'm kind of trying to put through my head what I heard tonight. So we did a project on riprap as structural, but we did not ask permit. So we did that, and then when it's done, we are asking for permit then. That's first observation. Second observation, we are using watershed money to install riprap, but we are not using any documentation. We don't have any structural calculation. We are just talking to some engineer who advise, and then we just dump a bunch of stones, but we are not installing a main component, and now we are pulling that riprap so we can put component back, that barrier, and then we are putting riprap back, but riprap is supposed to install that lake is at the lowest level, so you have that toe stone on the bottom. That is all point. So everything that I heard tonight, I'm so confused. I mean, I know what was in the past. We learn from mistakes, and that's okay. We now have to focus on a thing to be fixed the right way. And also, if we did not ask permission for that watershed project and we used their money, so how we will justify that money, and will we be in trouble in the future because we used the funds and we didn't ask for permission? Because if you want to do any watershed, especially that size of a project, you still need permission from watershed, not just those engineers. So it's just kind of, I'm very, very confused. My only intent is I don't want to put anybody down. I mean, I will tell anybody what I have to say. I respect everyone, but I just want to be sure that we are doing things ethically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to reports and other business. Stanley, strategic performance report, please. Thank you.
Mayor and council, given the lateness of the hour, I will not recite for you the 22-page strategic performance report. I'll leave to your reading or any questions or comments that you may have. But I do want to give you just a quick update. As you probably realize, the Georgia Municipal Association, who are also facilitating your planning retreat and has done it in the past, but they are particularly of value to cities in the state of Georgia and small cities. We do partner with them on a number of different programs. One of their most important functions is to monitor legislation when the state legislature comes into session. And so they are constantly monitoring. You may or may not have signed up for the daily alerts that they give on different legislation and different statuses. Now, a sub-agency of the Georgia Municipal Association is the DeKalb Municipal Association. They appoint a person that works with DeKalb County, and the chair of that DeKalb Municipal Association recently contacted all of the mayors, and our mayor was in engagement with them, and then she shared those series of communications with me for a couple of pieces of legislation that we should be aware of and somewhat concerned. There is first a Senate bill, SB 332, which is the removal of the opt-out provision for the statewide floating homestead exemption. A little history with the former council, we opted out, which meant that we would not be limited to the new ceilings that were put on homestead growth. And on the one hand, it is a positive for being sensitive to our neighbors who have homesteaded property, but as we've talked about throughout the night, Pine Lake is very dependent on this source, so we were very deliberate and held public hearings that we simply could not afford to have this provision in place. Now that that is being removed, and in discussion, me and the mayor and our new finance director, Stephen Mayer, what we know is that that legislation has passed the Senate and will likely pass the House. So that will probably be an issue that we will be taking up during your tax season. We will know by the time you adopt your new millage what the implications of that are. Even more dramatic is HB 1116, so House legislation, which is the elimination of property taxes on all homestead properties. Now, we don't know what all of the implications are. If it was just wiped out, obviously the city couldn't continue based on our current 70+% dependence that the mayor referenced earlier. But there would be companion legislation or part of this legislation that we can only hope that there's a full offset through some form of sales tax. If it was dependent on our current commercial corridor, obviously it would not even come close to replacing. But I don't want us to jump the gun and panic because I would expect that the state legislature is going to be sensitive to both of these pieces of legislation. And by any means, the Georgia Municipal Association, they are there, they stay in regular contact with us. Anything that we will need to provide, they will certainly facilitate. And then the DeKalb Municipal Association is also on top of it, where the mayor has shared some with the full group some ideas if cities need to prepare some impact statements, and we've already started working on that.
Great.
So
Thank
unless
you.
there are questions or comments, that's it for me.
Thank you, Steve.
It seemed like what I was tracking, well, 332 is about HB 581 from 2 years ago. Is that correct?
I can't match it, but I take your word for it because I know you study it.
Yeah. It also seems like there's a conflicting move within the state that is looking at doing this in response to the governor wanting to do something to impact or do away with state income tax. which there's also a bill now being passed, moving through the state legislature about the same thing. So those are going to be in conflict with each other somehow. So if the ones that do away with property tax pass, it destroys us as a city. And I would assume it's tied up in legal fight for years before it could come into effect. Is that reasonable to assume, Chris?
Not necessarily. I've not seen the final bill as it was transferred to the House. But the legislature retains largely unfettered discretion over local governance. So to find a mechanism by which there would be a legal theory that the statute, if it's ultimately signed by Governor Kemp, could be challenged will be something that my colleagues and I will be diligently searching for, but I can't say to a reasonable degree of certainty that in order for it to be held in abeyance pending the outcome of a lawsuit, we would have to be able to show a likelihood of success on the merits at the trial court in order to get it enjoined. If we got that injunction granted, then the state would have a right of appeal of that injunction to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals would have to say, yeah, the cities or the counties or cities are correct. This is likely unconstitutional, therefore we'll enjoin it pending the outcome of the litigation. There would not be a federal basis for adjudication, so we'd not be in federal court, would be in
State court.
Superior Court and the state appellate courts. That's a long-winded lawyer explanation to say I wouldn't bet on that with anybody else's money, much less my own.
Thank you. Thank you, City
Mayor
Manager.
Pro Tem Goldberg, I misunderstood your earlier question, but yes, SB 331 is.
It's tied to
yes,
581.
The previous HB.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to comments. Along those lines, on Friday, I have the Mayor's Roundtable discussion about things that are impacting DeKalb cities. So I'll have more information from the city perspective for y'all. We also have the next coffee with city staff and myself at City Hall. It's on the last Friday of every month, so that'll be the, I don't know, 27th-ish or something, at 8:30. We had a really good turnout last time, probably, I don't know, 11 or 12 people that came on 11:30 or 8:30 on a Friday morning, so. And that's a real, yeah, a lot of them, probably the most people at City Hall. But it's a really wonderful opportunity to have a roundtable discussion in a less formal setting. I see Mira left already, but I was going to mention that could be a great place for her to come if you see her. Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to mention is we do have a Facebook page forthcoming. I know Ned has been putting some feelers out on the existing ones to be just a singular kind of point of reference for people that are on Facebook so that we can post information that can then be shared. It won't be a place where we'll engage in comments from a perspective of just staffing and all of the things, but it will be a place where we can put information where people are, in addition to all the other places that we do. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. Sorry, my energy has waned. I have a bit of a migraine, but council, any comments?
Okay, I know it's really late, but I really believe in actionable items. So I have 3. One is look at the comprehensive plan. It's in the agenda packet because this is what the steering committee is going to work with. So like, see if you agree with it, and if you like how things are done, or you don't, or you think some priorities don't matter anymore, like that's the sort of information that's really valuable looking ahead with all of this. Number 2 is the strategic performance report is amazing. The staff does such an incredible job with it. People have talked about wanting timelines and advance notice, and there are multiple departments in this report that talk about things that are coming up in March. So as far as like staying up to date and getting some of that communication, it's in there. And then the third one is, I really do recommend like watching the orientation, like split it up, not necessarily all in one huge dose unless you really want to. I personally am reluctant sometimes with the idea of like distill. Like I think at a certain point things can get oversimplified. I found that whole experience just amazing, just in so many ways, but something that you would miss if you distill it is really getting to experience the staff, which was really, really special because every department head presented. So it's not just the information, it's getting a sense of who they are, how dedicated they are, how experienced they are, and just it was really just inspiring to me in a really personal way. You know, I think we all know how deeply devoted residents are and care, but also just seeing the level of care from the staff is really, really incredible.
Great, thank you. Any other council comment?
I'm intrigued by a conservancy. And I've been doing a little bit of research and just very tipping my toe in the water. And I've reached out to some people, and I have a meeting on Thursday with the executive director of the South Fork Rivershed Alliance, which is a conservancy that manages the South Fork watershed, which is basically next door to Pine Lake, to see what it is, what they do. Is it something we may even want to explore as an option, as a way to help manage our green space? So if anyone else has interest in that, that's something I'm kind of wanting to learn more about. I'm intrigued by it. It came up actually, I think, with the meeting we had with the Forestry Commission, and talking with them, and that sort of just bubbled up somewhere there. So just throwing that word out there. If people have an interest, reach out to me, and let's explore together.
Thank you, Jeff. Along those lines, one second. Along those lines, in the retreat that's coming up on Monday, we'll have a section around setting strategic priorities for the year. You know, the Conservancy coming out of the Green Space Master Plan is an option. I've heard a lot of residents talk about that and be excited about it. In the Economic Development seminar that I went to a few months ago, they talked about the utility of an arts council as it coincides with a development authority or downtown development authority as another tool for getting grants and having social stewardship. So those are two things I'd love to kind of see perhaps as a next iteration of our seed and map that will be a little bit more functional in economic development. So be thinking about your priorities, because that's something that we'll be talking about. Mr. Kendrick. Great. Okay. All right. Any other council comment, or is there a motion to adjourn?
I humanely move that we adjourn.
I humanely second.
Any humane thirds? All in favors?
Aye.
Great. Thanks. No.
I'm sure. But why peak so soon?
You have your whole mnemonic device and binding schedule, so I just want to check in.
No one has ever said that.